And Casey, the thing is that your 23-year-old, your 22-year-old, is as self-sufficient as they are, still could obtain a lot more knowledge and a lot more capabilities to get a lot more money, because whether they're self-employed or they're employed by somebody else, if they knew what we're going to talk about today, they would be able to do just that much more. And if they had that, they could teach that to their kids. And y'all could have the type of trust account where y'all guarantors, y'all can add to this account. Y'all can add to the trust account. And by adding to the trust account, depending on how the account is set up, by adding to the trust account, the extra family members that's putting into the pot will be getting out of the pot all of these extra benefits. Because if I set it up and it start going somewhere, every time somebody add to it, especially if the trust account is building interest off of it, if it's building interest off of itself, then all assets that belong to the trust account, like the houses and stuff to that effect, all of that stuff belong to the trust account. If you got one trust account that has the cars, and another trust account that has the real estate, and another trust account that has the cash, and all of this stuff is put together, and these trust accounts where the kids can lease out the house from the the family accounts. Now you don't have to worry about, oh, my landlord gonna kick me out, blah blah blah, because landlord is great grandpa. You see what I'm saying? This goes a whole lot deeper than just having a good job. But I mean, yeah, be proud of your kids for having their own job. It's be proud of them for not having to ask you for something. But it's not just to not have them ask you for something. It's about them not needing to ask you for something, because they can need to ask you for something and choose not to, specifically because of male pride. But they also can have everything that they need and not have a reason to ask you for nothing because they're financially set up. And that's the difference between the two. Uh, only this you do is make lazy generations and enlisted kids, making them earn their own millions more than willing to teach. Well, the thing is, and I'm going to catch up to these comments, Michael. Donald Trump was an inheritance baby. And even though he inherited millions from his ancestors, he invested that money in different ways, failed in a lot of different financial scenarios, went bankrupt 6 times, and still became a billionaire. So giving your children a ground to start on is not enabling them. Giving them money that, after you teach them how to get money, if you're giving them the money to start with something, they're more able to be successful. Like on the job training, they can give you on the job training and then give you the equipment that you need to make yourself successful. But if they gave you on the job training and you had to go and buy your own equipment, a lot of people will start a job and the job got to give them the uniform to work on the job. But there's a lot of jobs that you got to go find your own money and go get your own equipment and show up to work prepared. And if you don't have the money to get the equipment to show up for work prepared, while you are more than capable of doing this job, they're not even going to let you start working because you don't have the proper equipment. So setting up financial success and then willing that financial success to the next generation, and then putting the usage of that capital into a stipulation where until they show financial savvy, they're not getting access to this capital. That is a kind of thing that you can do to make them less dependent upon free money. See what I'm saying? You say everybody gets $1 upon my death and the dogs get it all. Right. But if the dogs get it all and somebody's taking care of the dogs, then they're going to be the power of attorney over the dogs, and they're still going to be using the money. So there's no difference except teaching them how to be financially responsible. He said, well, better to make money doing what you like than to work on a job that you hate. But the average American works on a job that they hate because they can't afford to work on a job that they like, because a job that they like doesn't pay them enough money to cover the standard of living that they have. So if they had an inheritance that was subsidizing their standard of living, then they would be able to do both. Live on it, get enough money to do what they need to do, and then do what they need to do elsewhere. You say, yeah, Hugh Howard's. Yeah, but Hugh Howard's was the one who already made it. So you got to think about the average American really does a better job about giving it to somebody else that's in a family that's going to benefit from it. I look forward to watching them grow. I do too. Go ask grandpa for the money. Nope. They're not asking grandpa for shit because they're going to learn how to get it on their own. They're going to learn how to get it on their own, and then they're going to get the surprise notion that, oh snap, they're on the trust account. And since they're on the trust account, I'm going to have money coming in. But if they already know how to get theirs, they're going to be able to make, save, and invest money, and that's going to make them just a little bit better. Now, yeah, 3-4 generations down the line, you're going to see that any type of family legacy, folks don't have to try, and they're not going to have any desire to teach the kids because they don't have to try, and then the kids don't have to try, and then everybody forgot the lessons that was taught from the first generation, and eventually you're going to have generation after generation of entitled kids. But you, first generation, is going to teach the second and third generation how to make it make sense. You know, are you on a trust account? Well, everybody should be on a trust account. The creator of the trust should be on a trust account, and every generation of people that they value should be on a trust account. And you should have certain stipulations as to how they get on the trust account. And if you set those stipulations correctly, the trustee would have to determine if you met the criteria of the trust account before you start getting paid. And since a trustee don't know you from a hole in the ground, their job is to enforce what's in writing, and your job is to meet that expectation. So if you haven't met that expectation, you ain't getting shit. So now it's not so much. Now it's not so much if you're going to get money from grandpa, if you're going to qualify to get money from grandpa. That's going to be the statement. You know what I mean? And that's something that requires a little bit more effort. But think about this. Let's get into today's topic real quick, because for 12 years, you know, they taught all of us about the angles of a triangle, you know, the history of ancient civilization. And for 12 years, you sat in the classroom, you memorizing the facts for standardized testing. Your main focus was SATs and test scores for you to get into a college. But what they did not teach you is the single most important skill for survival and success in the real world: the language of money. And y'all know it because while you were memorizing Shakespeare, a financial trap was being set, a maze designed to keep you confused, indebted, and working for someone else your entire life. And the brutal truth is, millions are walking right into it. And a major 2021 study found that adults in the United States could only correctly answer about half of the basic financial questions. And that's a failing grade. And this isn't just an abstract number, it's a real world cost. Steve says it looks like we have to be the first generation of my family to start a trust account and start that trend. You're exactly right. The average American, because people who have trust accounts are typically in at least the top 23 percentile. So there's at least 77% of Americans that don't do this. And we don't pass down the knowledge from generation to generation because we don't have the knowledge to pass down. And we're in a position where we didn't know what to do growing up. And it takes us the first 20 years of adulthood to figure this stuff out. And then by the time we get it, we're glad that we're not getting messed up anymore, and we're not teaching our kids that. And some of us are so busy trying to keep our daughters from getting pregnant at a young age and keeping our sons from having to deal with child support at a young age, if we even put that much effort into the kids, that we're not even focused on teaching them the financial stuff that we didn't know growing up. Because a lot of the times, think about, what do the kids value these days? Fashion trends, who taught them that? Name brand stuff, who taught them that? Y'all got babies in Gucci and Prada outfits and stuff. Are you teaching this child financial values with these expensive ass $300 baby outfits that's only going to be worn by the child 4 times before the child grow out the outfit? And are you being financially responsible when you buy a $700 or $800 outfit for your child when your child's school clothes cost $65? Think about it. But if we started with our first generation trust account, we learn what we need to learn. We build the trust in a revocable trust where we can make changes along the way. And then once we're satisfied with the outcome, we make amendments for the last time. And then we switch it over to an irrevocable trust. Or when we die, switch over to an irrevocable trust. And then whatever we set up before we die, it is going to be what everybody else is going to stand for as we put them onto the trust account. And if we start by teaching our kids, and we start by teaching other members of the family, you have ways to add people onto the trust account, ways to take people off of the trust account, and when the trustee is supposed to make those changes, and all of the stuff that you put together on it. The more complex your trust account is, the more expensive it is to manage it. But the fact is that the more complex your trustee account is, the more successful the next generation has to be in order to benefit from the trust account. That's just, it is what it is. Because once they start receiving money from the account, there isn't a reason why they're not going to continue receiving money from the account until they pass away. But the next question is that when do they start receiving money from the account? After their 18th birthday, after they get married, after 25, what do they have to do to start getting this money from this trust? Graduate from college, what do they have to do? Because whatever stipulations that you set, these are the things that you have to accomplish in life before you start getting paid. See what I'm saying? Which means that they have to go down a specific direction in life in order to get your money. Michael says, to be or not to be? No. To get paid or not to get paid? That's the real question. I'm glad I took typing in high school. Most will never learn it since their mothers and fathers don't know it either. Exactly. And that's why I'm trying to teach y'all today. Look, due to a simple lack of financial knowledge, one survey has estimated that the average American lost over 1,800 in a single year from things like overdraft fees, high interest credit card debt, and missing out on investment growth opportunities. And that adds up to over 436 billion sucked out of the pockets of everyday annual people. $46 billion that we're just giving away on a regular basis. And who gets hit the hardest? Ironically, the young people. Studies are showing that Gen Z score the lowest of any generation so far on financial literacy tests, with some research indicating that they answer as few as 38% of the questions correctly. And it's no wonder a staggering 88% of adults say high school left them unprepared to handle money in the real world. The system isn't broken. It was designed this way. It was built to create compliant workers, not confident wealth builders. But what if there was a different path, a roadmap that schools should have given you, but they didn't? And what if there was a forbidden curriculum, a 10-year plan that could take you from zero to financial knowledge and bring you all the way up to the financial freedom that you need? Because this isn't a get rich quick scheme yet again. This is a get rich young blueprint. This is the forbidden knowledge they didn't want you guys to have. And your real education is going to start on tonight's show. Is it funny how you spent 12 years in school to get you ready for life, and most can't handle money. Well, they didn't spend 12 years in school to get you ready for life. You spent 12 years in school to follow instructions, do as you're told, repetition. They didn't teach you nothing meaningful that would make you financially successful. Your degree is based on historical data that has absolutely nothing to do with the on the job training that you need to get the job. You're more directly in line with what you want to do with your life by going to a trade school than what you do by going to a 4-year institution. Because the only thing they're going to teach you in a trade school is how to perform the task that needs to be performed to make the money on the career choice that you have. High school got you cramped into a specific place like prison. Some places covered with tall fences and security guards and metal detectors, and they are walking you to and from class, getting you prepared for the prison mentality. They got you all rode up like a conveyor belt. Everybody sit down, follow my instructions, get you a grade, focus on what I tell you to focus on, get your grade, and then go home. A lot of schools are a daycare center for the kids. Go to school because I got to go to work. You can't be home by yourself. Sit there until this afternoon, and then I meet you back at the house. Most families that are low income families can't afford to feed their kids. Go to school, get you something to eat, get there before breakfast so that you get breakfast and lunch at the school, and then you get dinner at the house. None of that is teaching you what's going on. And you got to realize real quick, school used to be going to school and getting reinforced information on the knowledge that you were taught at home. And those of us that are minorities know we was taught at the house how to read because master said we's not allowed to know how to read. So we was taught how to read, write, and count at home. And then during segregation, we went to school and showed them that we knew more than the other kids. And we was asking questions. Our mentality has shifted over the years. And now we just send the kids to school to figure it out. We don't teach the kids nothing at home. We don't teach them how to read, write, count, spell. We help them with their homework if we have time because the kids don't understand. Or we buy them a tutor if we don't have time because the children don't understand. But we only work on with the kids what the teacher does not show them. But the teacher is supposed to be working on with us what the kids don't understand from their parents, not the other way around. You're supposed to go to the class already with a little bit of knowledge and be answering questions about how to help me learn this more. So if you're hearing it for the first time with your school, you done already fell behind. Because mom and daddy should have, you know, the smartest kids in the class or the ones that was taught at home because their parents was teaching them how to read, write, and count at 4, 5, and 6 years old instead of letting them play until they 8. And then the kids that have been looking at this since they was 2, 3 years old, those kids are going to be smarter on a higher grade point average. And then when they go to school, they're going to be the youngest kid in the class because they learned all of this stuff years ago. It ain't because the kids are being born. Odds are, you know, the ones that get taught something, probably the fathers teaching the kids what's going on. He said, I could have taught you that in a week with a stick. But at the end of the day, you got to recognize that if you would have been teaching your kids at the house, then the kids would have had more knowledge going into school and their grades would have been better. Trade school makes more money in the long run than a college degrees. Well, trade school puts you into blue collar work, and it doesn't necessarily make you more money in the long run. It does qualify you for different jobs that require that on the job skill set, like working on an oil refinery, welding, stuff to that effect. But it's not necessarily going to get you a far better job than what you would have gotten out of a tech company if you would have gotten an IT degree and had those years of experience in a IT school that would have taught you how to do coding, where you could have been making $250,000 a year typing on a computer, working for Google. you know. But trade school will give you direct knowledge towards the skill that you need, as opposed to historical knowledge about education that has little to do with the skills that you need for the job that you're trying to get. Because again, when you get your bachelor's degree in biology, they don't teach you how to operate on patients. But nursing, doctors, surgeons, local anesthesias, vets, techs, radiology, there's all of these different medical fields where a biology degree is supposed to be the degree that you need to get that type of job, or preferred degree that you would need to get that type of job. But then after you get that biology degree, you still have to go past your genetics class, go to med school, and have them spend a whole nother 8 years of showing you how to use needles, inject them into people, dosages, and this, that, and the third, which has nothing to do with the original bachelor's degree that you had gotten. Is I can learn some things as college degrees just by reading the textbook. You can learn everything that you learn to get a college degree just by reading the textbook, because all they're doing in the college class is going over the textbook that you should have already read, but you chose not to read it until the teacher started talking about it in class, and now you don't understand it. Now you're going to go back and flip through the pages and try to find the concepts that are bolded in the textbook to figure out what's going to be on the test. If the parents don't know the new math, ain't no new math. It's the old math that the parents didn't learn when they was going to school, and the different ways to get it done. And I can tell you, I know this because I'm teaching 40, 50 different countries around the world right now. And I can tell you that the concepts are still the same. It's just which year they're being taught, whether they're being taught in high school or they're being taught in junior high school. That's the only difference. Oil rigs, 220,000 per year, no experience. Oil rigs are not 220,000 a year, no experience. You have to have the experience to know how to utilize the oil rig equipment. It is so. Here's the thing: you do not have to have experience on the oil rig. You have to have the experience of the stuff that is on the oil rigs. So the welding equipment, the any of the release valves or stuff to that effect that they've got going on. You have to know how to turn these things, what the temperature gauge is supposed to look like, all of these other things that needs to be dealt with on the oil rig. But also that 220,000 a year situation you got to think about on those oil rigs. Those people are living a hazard pay style job where every 3 months while they're on an oil rig, they could die. So on 3 months, off 1 month, and making that 220,000 a year, they're making some good money because they're putting their life on the line to make this money. Nursing degree in 9 months, LPN, sometimes 18 months, and not necessarily getting that 68,000 a year. Actually, they're going to be starting off at a little over minimum wage. They're going to be making between 40 and 55,000 a year starting out. And when they go in there and start doing the work, the high end of that particular job is gauged at 68,000 per year. That's the cap on LPNs. That's not the base of LPNs. That's the most that they're going to get on LPNs. So you're going to see them getting between 45 and 55,000 a year. And after they start showing some experience, that's when they're going to get raises to 68,000 a year. And if they want to make more than 68,000 a year, they're going to have to go from being an LPN to a registered nurse. And that 68,000 a year, which is the median or high end cap of that particular occupation, is on par with a fast food restaurant. So you went to college, you put all these years into college so that you could put on some scrubs and get paid the same amount of money as a dishwasher at the Chili's. So I'm just trying to say, like, these numbers don't add up in comparison to the life expectancies that we put into going to college. It's not for everybody, but we're going to get into that in just a moment. Is all the answers in the back of the book? Well, the answers to the explanations are in the back of the book, but it's just for textbook knowledge, because book smarts and street smarts are not the same thing. the ability to adapt to circumstances, street smarts, and the ability to understand textbook concepts is book smarts. And you real world application of textbook information has to be learned in real world application, and that is where on the job training comes from, is a real world application of textbook information, and they're not always hand in hand. And textbook information is taught in college, and real world application is taught in trade school, and you're going to need a little bit of both in order to get there. Is it you can just die walking to work? That's not the point. You're not getting paid to walk to work. You're getting paid on an oil rig, and you will get paid more money on that job than what you would get paid at a McDonald's or on the back of a garbage truck or as a police officer, because that job you would die on the job or die on the boat getting to the job if there's tidal waves going on, and you just got to figure that out. But they're going to make sure that you're getting the money based off of the hazard pay of the kind of job you're working on. 50,000 is still good money. 50,000 is still good money depending on where you stay, because with the median average, the working class average being upward of $79,000 to $85,000 a year, where you're making like $1,765 a week, which is a little under $8,000 a month. 50,000 a year is poor class. It's good money, but it's still poor class. You're needing to make over 80,000 a year to be in a lower middle class, and you need to be making over 100,000 a year to be in the middle class. Get a 2-year RN. Yeah, but if you go to a 2-year RN, now you're talking about 18 to 24 months in college so that you can get paid $85,000 or $90,000, and that's if you get the job. And then finish out your last 2 years in your 4-year degree, which is still $200,000 worth of student debt. So while you're making that 70 or 80,000 a year, you're still paying 30,000 of it back to the school or the government for your student loan. So you still got $65,000 worth of income after you pay off your student loan debt. There's the method behind it doesn't make sense when you start looking at the numbers, and that's why I said I was going to show y'all other ways to look at this, how to teach your kids different things so that y'all kids can hit the ground running and start finding other ways to make money for themselves. Because you got to think about this. When you was talking about don't give your kids the inheritance, well, if you have, now you're not going on welfare. That's the point. They're cutting all that stuff out. If you have the inheritance that's helping subsidize the kid's income, what happens is that they either have money to pay for their standard of living, where they can take the money that they work for and pay for their education so that they don't have to take out as many student loans, or you have the money going towards their education if they're staying at home with their families so that they don't have to work at all, so that they can focus on their education, so that they can get the degree without having to borrow so much money for their education. If you get out of school with less student debt, then you can hit the ground running with living your life fresh out of college. If you got a $70,000 a year job fresh out of college with no student debt, you're better off than having an $80,000 occupation with $200,000 worth of student debt fresh out of college. See what I'm saying? You need less because you owe less, and you can survive on less, which means that your expectations for career choice is more vast, because now instead of bottlenecking at the top jobs, you can take anything that you can get or anything that's in line with what you want, because you're not limited based on the amount of money that you already have coming in versus what you want to do. And then again, welfare is only for the poor, the extra poor, and welfare cap stops at 30,000. So even though you're not making enough to survive in a poor class, you're not going to get on welfare at 55, 60,000 a year unless you got 5 kids. You get on welfare at like 30,000, 35,000. You might even be on like a semi-subsidized welfare system at 50,000, but that's it if you're lucky, because they're cutting everybody off because they're standardizing everything to private entities, and it's not government funded as much. Well, he said, I hate the ankle bracelets and being in debt just does not feel right to me. Well, if you use debt wisely, then being in debt is not going to be a problem for you. Being in debt is going to be a benefit for you, because when you're paying on debt, you get tax deductions on that. If you're paying on debt that goes towards a business. So let's go into this real quick, because we begin at age 8, and the first lesson is the most fundamental, understanding what money even is, because it's not just paper or coins. It's a tool earned by doing work or providing value of some kind, because a lot of times you don't have to do anything. You just have to be able to network somebody else into getting something that they need. And this is where you learn the primal difference between needs and wants, which is something that a lot of us have to be taught. And you need food and shelter, and you want new video games. Learning to see the difference isn't a lecture, it's a daily practice. So the difference between needing uh, uh, clean clothes versus needing velvet red bottom shoes, you don't need that. You want that. You just need some shoes on your feet so that you're not barefoot. You want designer stuff. You don't need to glue that hair on your scalp. You want to do that to make yourself feel pretty. But what you needed to do was take you a shower and go out of the house smelling fresh. There's a difference between the two. So the makeup is not a need, it's a desire, it's a luxury. It's that first job, 8 years old, paper route. Right. They're not teaching kids that these days. These days, they don't get their first job till they're 22 sometimes. Well, yeah, you and I both. We always work for something. We did something somewhere, always grinding out to make money. Never had to ask parents for nothing. And at the end of the day, even still, we're not where we could have been had we had more financial knowledge than what we did growing up. If we would have took all the money that we was making and more effectively investing it in ourselves, in our own success, from 8 to 18, we would have had a better plan. And from 18 to 38, our 20-year plan of being millionaires, we would have been millionaires. And now, 40 and 70 years old, we would be multimillionaires. Because like I told y'all yesterday, is that if you're putting away 40,000 a year at about 15% interest, and that is giving you an extra 10,000 a year, you're averaging 50 to 60,000 a year going into the bank, and in 10 years, that's between 500 and $600,000. And if you continuously reinvest the principal or reinvest the interest back in with the principal, eventually you'll be putting in 110, 120,000 a year, because your 40,000 plus the 60,000 kickback is going to go back into it as 100,000 a year. By 20 years, you'd be getting $1.5 million. And if you stay true to the game, but if you decided to dial back 10 years in, where you're getting back more money now in 10 years than what you was getting off your current primary job, you might decide to say, well, I'm not going to work anymore and I'm going to live off of this. But that's early retirement. But if you've got enough money coming in from that, where you can now start up your own business or do some other stuff that can make you a little extra money because you're bored, instead of you working because you have to, you're working because you want to. And because you have a financial blanket, you can focus more on the success of your business and still be able to live. Because if the money that's coming in is above your standard of living, the cost of your ability to survive, then you can take the money left over and put that extra money towards boosting up your business. And eventually you'll make it. But the reason why a lot of people fail is because they need money now, they don't have time, and they need to go somewhere else to make profits to take care of their habits, their lifestyle. And that's one of the reasons why people give up on their business ventures, because they don't have enough time, they don't have enough resources, and they need money now. FX says the government, in response to COVID-19 pandemic, caused crazy inflation that will not go away for years. The inflation is not going to go away, not because of the government. You got to think about how this works. The government feeds money to the poor minded through the stimulus check, because the poor minded are going to spend every dollar that they get. Sales stimulates the economy. When people who get money buy stuff, that's transactions, money changing hands, which requires something to get bought, which requires people to move stuff around, which puts money into those people's pockets, and those people are going to spend money because they're getting money, and they're going to spend somewhere else, and that's just going to trickle upward. Isn't that funny? So instead of money going to the rich and the money trickling down, because the rich people are rich because they don't spend money like that. Instead, they stimulated the economy by giving the money to the poor-minded folks who are going to spend every dollar that they get, and the money is trickling upward. Because the millionaires and billionaires only make money when poor people buy products from the rich people's companies. So the government isn't causing crazy inflation. It is the impulse purchase of poor-minded people. That's what stimulates inflation. Because if we said, I'm not buying that, that's too expensive, what do you think they're going to do? Drop the price. Because supply and demand allows them to increase the price of the supply when there is a larger demand than the supply. If they have a larger supply than the demand, the value of that price goes down. So if everybody in the country said to themselves, I am not buying houses this year, the value of real estate would go down. And then you would see $150,000 houses as a normal standard instead of $500,000 houses. If people say we're not buying houses over $200,000 or $300,000, then no house would be priced at over $200,000 or $300,000 because it won't get sold. What they have, what is called a price point. A price point is the most money you can charge for this product that somebody's willing to pay. And who controls the price point? It is not the person that's marketing the product. It's the person that's willing to spend their money on it. So that person that's willing to spend $400 for a pair of Jordans to get it first, enough people do that, that lets the company know people are willing to spend $400 for the Jordans. So what do you think they're going to do? They're going to put Jordans on the market for $450, right? Then they're going to put a discount price on it that brings it down to $395 or $375 for a limited time only. You're going to have so many people trying to buy it during a discount. They're still paying more than the $350 they was paying for the Jordan. Jordans are Nikes, and Nikes are $45. But because you got this little shadow of a dude trying to dunk a ball, 10 times more value. But here's the thing, though. After the introductory discounted price, it goes up to its regular price. So now you're buying that same pair of Jordans that somebody got for $25 more than last year's version. You're buying that same pair of Jordans outside of the discount rate for $50 more than what the same shoe was being sold last year. And now that's becoming standard practice as a shoe $400. But the shoe $45 because it's a pair of Nikes. Nike Air Jordans. It's a pair of Nikes. And you get that same shoe for 10% if you take the little basketball jumping die off the shoe. But that's what we're going to be getting into today, teaching the kids about value. Because does a pair of Jordans outlast a pair of Nikes or a pair of Reebok or a pair of Adidas? No, they do not. Do they outlast a pair of Converse? No, they do not. It's just style. The Philosophy of Money, a great book. Yeah, it is. Or control key property with great visibility. In order to control key property, you have to know what key properties to control. Good to see you, Dylan. Now, the goal here, when we start talking about teaching the kids at 8 years old, is to do some simple practices with powerful choices. Just like I gave you guys the examples about the shoes. This is going to start with like clear jars, not piggy banks, because you cannot see inside of a piggy bank. You start putting coins into the piggy bank, and then you got to break the piggy bank or take the little thing out of the bottom and let the coins come out of the piggy bank and count the money to see how much you made in the piggy bank. With piggy banks are blind savings. You want to get like clear jars. Y'all know those of us when we was kids, we had mason jars, the giant glass jars that you could see through and you could just keep adding coins to. Some of us, we had parents that would cut a slit in the lid and screw the lid down on it and just drop money into the jar until the jar got full. And then we took the jar and went to the bank and turned that jar into big bills or deposited the money into the bank. When you get these jars, that jar is specific for a small goal, something like a new toy or a book. For example, the red Lego car that costs like $10, every dollar that goes into this visible jar is a visible step towards that goal, right? So you practice savings versus spending in real time with your 8-year-old. And for example, there's another one at the grocery stores. You show them 2 boxes of cereal, the character branded one for $5 and the store branded one for $3. And then you ask them, is the cartoon character worth $2? Because that's 2 weeks of savings for your Lego car, right? You are learning the first lessons of value. The same thing I told you about the hyperinflation of Jordans. And then I explained to you truthfully how Air Jordans are a version of Nikes, and you can get a pair of Nikes for 10% of the price of Jordans. So is that little Jumpman guy on the side of the shoe worth 10 times more the cost of the shoe? Some people were taught in their upbringing to say yes. Others would say, nah, that's a waste of money. Open a bank account with your kids. No, you don't open a bank account with your kids. You teach your kids financial freedom. Well, you teach your kids financial responsibility first. Then you open up a bank account to monitor for your kids. Because opening up one with your kid, like taking them to the bank and putting them on a joint bank account with you, that ain't doing nothing for them. Showing them how to be financially responsible and then teaching them what banks are like after they know what they're doing, that is going to be the best way to go. But we're going to be talking about that in just a moment. Yeah, show them how to invest. That's going to come later as well. But at least you're on the right path. Read the label. Well, you want to, well, first of all, you have to identify, is the label really all that important? Looking at the product and what you're getting the product for. If you're getting a product for substance, then you're not really worried about whether or not the product is name brand or generic. If you're getting a product for durability, you're not focused on the name brand, you're focused on the reputation of durability, not the marketing of durability. You're looking at a product review that, like, for example, Tesla Cybertruck, not good for construction. But at the end of the day, if you're looking for a car that doesn't spin gas and doesn't have money on maintenance, you could potentially get one. If you're looking for a vehicle that has historical reputation for being durable, you're looking at a Dodge Ram or a Ford truck or a Chevy Silverado. You know, those are like the 3 trucks that you see in America. But the Toyota Tundra, you could see those. That's a 4th truck that you could see out there putting in work. But really heavy machinery is typically done by either Dodge or Ford. Dodge 3500s and Ford 3500, where those are diesel trucks that haul airplanes and everything else all over the place. Exactly. Honda versus what is that? Predator Generato. Name you didn't even know about. Versus the Mustang and the Camaro that's overpriced with high insurance on it. Exactly. But here's an unorthodox angle for you to think about. If you turn the home into a micro economy, you have the child running a mini store, for example. You buy a multi-pack of snacks for $5, and then you let them sell each snack to the family members for 75 cents. When they're done, they'll have $7.50 and a $2.50 profit. You can go so far as to have them restock that snack with that $5 and keep the $2.50 profit. they are physically experiencing what it means to provide a product and earn a profit at the same time. Which, if they're turning a profit off of selling snacks in the house, um, they would be in control of the snack drawer or whatever in the house. They would go with you to the store to buy snacks, and they would prioritize buying snacks to double their money so that they could use the selling of snacks so that they can go and buy something that they need. So instead of them jumping up and down and having temper tantrums in the store because they want, they're going to give you the money to buy the inventory so that they can sell the stuff at the house so that they can make their money. That's just the introductory levels at like 6, 7, and 8 years old, where you can teach them how to be financially responsible. He said, I will take the Predator half the price and just as good. But that's the idea. That right there is a financial idea. It's a not well known company that has a cheaper price because it has a lower demand for it. It has the same quality of performance as a Honda, and it's going to get you a lot more for your money. That's the cost. That's the idea. Instead of buying name brand. Shoes used to eat up my money when I was younger. I was spend my last on shoes. I used to buy dress shoes when I was younger. Shoes was cheap for me. I was actually 16, 17, 18 years old. I was in silk and satin suits and stuff. I wasn't wasting money on, because the $400 you spent on a pair of sneakers, I would have spent on a whole outfit, probably 2 or 3 outfits with the shoes. I was ironically flashier. My clothes were not tied to or limited to a trend. I could wear my stuff year round. You got summer clothes and winter clothes, and I got let's go outside clothes. But that's because I learned, ironically, what I learned is that trends tend to come back around every 10 years. And since I learned that, I went back, because I was born in the 80s, I went back to the 60s and 70s, and I made that the generation of attire that I was just going to stick with my whole life and just wait for the trend to catch up to me. And when it did, you see them pinky blinders guys that are walking around. It's just a bunch of white dudes in suits, in pinstripe suits. And the only thing people can think of is the mob. But it's just a bunch of well-dressed men in suits. Where it took from the 90s to 2025 for some men to put on some suits for something other than going to church, going to court, and going to funerals and weddings. For people to be like, dang, you know what I mean? These men look nice. And we used to, when we had respect for ourselves. We just forgot what that was like. Now you see us outside with basketball shorts sagging off of our basketball shorts, sagging off of our boxers. Why you got 2 pairs of shorts on, I don't know. So that your shorts can come down to your ankles, and then you got socks with sandals on and a wife beater on, and which ironically is curled up your back somewhere. So even with all these shorts and drawers on, we can still see the crack of your behind. And you outside like this casual. All right. Remember, you represent yourself 24/7. Now, doing these steps is going to be the first steps in rewiring the brain to see the world not just as a consumer. Because if you only think about stuff in life as you're buying it, you are going to have a one-track mind of going to work to make enough money so that you can buy the things that you want. Instead, teaching your children at a young age how to perform this scenario will teach them how to be a producer of a product, looking at the demand and then filling that demand with a supply that they can then turn a profit into. And that will build a younger entrepreneur. Because drop shippers are successful because they know how to find the product that people are interested in buying, and then they sell those products so that they can make profits off of the product. Even Michael does estate sales. He goes places and buys stuff that's being undervalued and sold at a cheaper value. He'll buy it, then he'll go back and sell it either online or in person to someone else who will spend more money on it than what Michael originally spent on it, which allows Michael to turn a profit on somebody else's, ideally, greed and desire. But 70 years, you've spent 20, 30, 40 years knowing the kind of items that people would be willing to spend money on. You do your research on some of this stuff. And then based on the quality, you'll pick it up. You'll clean it up. If it's not already cleaned up, then you'll put it up for sale and somebody will buy it. He said, still learning this computer, needs spell check. Now, think about this. The kids also can take their toys, their own toys, or a bulk box of family snacks and put a price on them as well. And they can sell them to siblings, or they can sell things back to you. And that is ways that they can generate revenue. They can also rent out their toys to some of their friends or rent out their toys to some of their siblings. So instead of them fighting over the toys, one kid can have another kid give them $2 or $3 for the toy so that they can get the money off of the toy being used by somebody else. And then they get it back after a couple days. They're going to learn about pricing. They're going to learn about trade-offs and making change through play, not through a boring lecture. Then they're not physically experiencing, they start to physically experience what it means to provide that product and earn a profit from the provision of that product. And this is going to be the first steps in rewiring the brain to see the world not just as a consumer, but as a producer, which is a lot better than having the kids just looking at something that they want that was glorified by a commercial or amped up by their friends. And then they come to you and they just say, hey, mom or dad, I want. Instead, it's like, well, how do I get the money to go get that? And then when you think about what effort you have to put into getting the money to get that, you have to ask yourself a risk assessment. Is it worth me putting in this much effort to get that item? That's when you start deciding at a younger age, do I go get those new Ninja Turtle shoes, or do I just like let that ride for real quick? They say rent your toys out. Better to rent your sister out. Don't be stupid, Michael. You're not first and foremost. It is more important for you to teach the kids how to, one, respect each other. So that was inappropriate, Michael. Second is it's better for you to teach them how to utilize the stuff that they already got to turn a profit. Because the first time parents start doing a garage sale is when they can't afford to pay for something. And the first thing they want to do is run out there and go and sell all the kids' stuff. House full of junk, but they'll sell all the kids' stuff. Talk about, you don't need this no more. And the kids got high value in it. The kids don't think about selling the stuff that they have to turn a profit off of it, because they know no matter how much stuff that they got, they can always go ask their mom and dad for more. But if you teach your children how to go and make their own money, make money for themselves, they're going to look at the things that they don't mess with that much anymore. They're going to look at the things that don't have value to them as much anymore. And then there's going to be things they're going to keep that they're never going to let go. But the rest of the stuff that they just don't really need, they can find places where they can sell it to somebody and get something back off of it, and use the money that they get off of decluttering their room to make money to buy them something extra that they just want and don't need, which is good, because this reduces your requirement to give them an allowance, and it reduces their need to come and ask you for money. I also gave you guys methods on using finance to parent kids, like them going out late at night. They got to buy their freedom. Put a price tag on going out at night. This prevents them from arguing with you about when they can get out. What if you can't afford to, do certain things, then you got to be in by 8. But I mean, if you can afford to do certain things, then we can negotiate that. Like, For example, instead of grounding your kids and taking away their phone, charge them a penalty for not performing a certain way. This is going to be the cause and effect because in your household, you are the local government. Your parents answer to, your children answer to you. You are the rule distributor. You are the consequence deliverer. And instead of a lot of the times whoopings and grounding the children and taking everything from them, it's like, nah, you pay a fine. You pay a fine. So you're not going to sit in your room all day. Yeah, confinement can happen for certain things, but for the most part, is that you're going to have to pay a fine, the restitution behind, which is introducing them to the legal system without actually having to introduce them to the legal system in a negative way. You understand that if you don't follow these rules, that you will have to pay a fine. And if you don't have the money to pay that fine, you don't want to violate that rule. And that will prevent you from having to deal with them making bad choices as an adult and then going to jail and having to pay these fines and traffic tickets and everything to that effect because they learn in their younger years the cause and effect of breaking rules and paying the fine behind that rule. He said, sell the toys usually after several months, it goes into the toy box and never seen again. But that's my point. If you've got a toy box, that means you have more toys than toys that you play with, which means that the ones at the bottom of the box are the ones that are less used. And if you clean off the ones at the bottom of the box, you can sell those, keep the ones that you use in the middle of the box and the ones that you use the most at the top of the box. And the ones at the bottom of the box can get you enough money to add more toys to the top of the box. And that way you're spending less money on toys because you're recycling them out. Or you can rent your toys out to some of your friends. Oh, can I borrow this game for a couple of days? $3 a day. How many days do you want it? 7 days. All right. But because you rented it from me for 7 days, in 8 days, I'm going to come looking for my toy, but I just made how much? $3 a day, 7 days, $21. Go buy me another toy. You said trauma and therapy for life for some kids. Well, the trauma and therapy for life for those kids that are catching whoopings and stuff. But if you teach the kids financial responsibility and then you add a price tag to it, you can be a little bit more lenient about the things that they do because they're going to be taught more responsibility. And then by teaching them more responsibility, you can still back up their play when they're doing something that you're not too sure about and come to their aid to a degree, as long as you're not spending any money on coming to their aid. But at the same time, you're negotiating now. Let's say kids want to go to a house party. Well, they already know the consequences of going to a house party that's got alcohol in it because if they get arrested, they're going to have to pay fines on that. But if you're going to a house party and you're like, well, I don't want you to go. I want you to be back at 8 o'clock. Well, now instead of them, oh, come on, please, 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 and hissy fit and stuff like that, it's like you already know that curfew's at 8 and it's $200 an hour for you to stay out past 8. Now, if that's the rule, $200 an hour to stay out past 8, how much money you got? You want to stay till midnight? That's 4 hours. That's $800. You got $800 to stay out past midnight? No. Well, how much do you have? $225? All right, we'll keep the 25 for gas money, $200 to be back at 9. That's the negotiation. See what I'm saying? Any rule that demands a fine for breaking it is only a rule poor people have to follow. Yes, I agree with that. But likewise, anybody who values their capital are not willing to allow their hard-earned money to be taken out of their pockets for any unnecessary reason. The majority of Americans have car insurance for 2 reasons. One, because their license will get suspended, and then they'll put out a warrant out for your arrest if you're driving on a suspended license, where you'll go to jail and pay fines. 2, you pay insurance on your car because if your car has contact with somebody else or somebody else's car, you're financially responsible for the damage. So you have the insurance company pay for the damage and limit settlements inside of your insurance policy coverage. People are mandatorily required to get car insurance when they buy a new car because they're liable for the asset itself that's backing the loan on the car. So you're not able to just run out there and go and get a car with no insurance on it, because the laws have financial penalties if you don't have car insurance. People wear seatbelts. Statistically, it is safer to have a seatbelt for head-on collisions, but a T-bone collision, it is not safer to have a seatbelt on. A lot of the times, you break your collarbone for wearing a seatbelt. People wear seatbelts though, and they wear seatbelts not because it's safer. They wear seatbelts because they don't want to pay for the ticket for not having a seatbelt. Plain and simple. It's a non-moving violation. You can get 30,000 seatbelt tickets and never lose your license and never have an increase on your car insurance, but you'll be spending more money not wearing seatbelts than what you do by putting on a seatbelt. Which is why even if you normally drive your vehicle without a seatbelt, if you pull up next to or in anywhere near the shape of the front of a police car, you're putting your seatbelt on now so that they don't pull you over and give you a ticket, because you don't want money to be taken out of your pocket. But also at the same time, while you believe that it's just rules to have poor people follow, rich people will pay the money for breaking the rules because they can afford to pay for they've built up enough wealth to be able to pay for the financial cost of that consequence. And that's going to be the reason why rich individuals are seemingly understood to be above the law, because they can afford to pay the penalties for their consequences. But that takes us back to some of the core fundamental goals that I teach you guys on this show, is to do what you know is right, stand up for what you believe in, defend that by any means necessary, and accept the consequences of your actions before you perform the action. So if you know that this consequence is going to cost you $250,000, you don't have $250,000, you don't do that. But big business might dump radiation in a child's playground at night, knowing that there's $250,000 fine to that. They'll take $250,000 and put it into a high interest account and let it sit there for years until somebody sues. By the time somebody sues, they'd have made $10 million off that $250,000. There's enough money in that account to pay off the lawyers that's going to stall on this. They're still going to settle for the $250,000 because that's the most that this particular crime is going to be worth. And they'd have made a profit off of their deliberate acknowledgement that they're about to fuck this shit up. But the difference is that they can afford their actions. They accepted the consequences of their actions before they performed the action. They put their money away, and then when somebody came and got them for it, they was able to pay. Think about if we had that type of system, we would have a lot more people saving up money to do stupid stuff. How many of your friends did you rent your toys out to? Actually, I was selling mine. I didn't rent nothing because I ain't trust my friends to return nothing. I was selling to them for a decent price. If they wanted something, I'll sell it to them. I had a job too, so I was going out there buying stuff. If your kid had $200 per hour, she may kick you out of the house. Well, no, your kid wouldn't kick you out of the house, because if your kid is ultimately paying for the ability to have an extended curfew, at the end of the day, they're learning cause and effect. Because again, if they took that $200 an hour to, well, they would not have a $200 an hour job. They're being allowed to, for the cost of $200, to be gone from the house later than you would prefer, which is like the consequence of breaking curfew kind of thing. And if they're able to pay that, then they're able to go out there and do that. But that also means that that child would be able to save that kind of money and then have that type of money to go and do that type of activity. Because if they're supposed to be back at 10 and they give you $200 to be out till 11 and they come back at 12, they still have consequences for coming back past curfew. but it's a way of using monetary compensation to negotiate deals. This is just unorthodox ways to better parent your kids and make your kids financially responsible, because if they know that they want to go to that house party, they know they want to go to that prom night, they know that it's going to cost a certain quantity of money, they know they have to gain that money by putting in effort to make money so that they can use that money to go and pay for having the ability to go to prom. And doing it like that is equivalent to planning for a vacation. You know how much it's going to cost for this weekend getaway. You put money aside so that you can go to this weekend getaway without compromising your standard of living. And then once you can afford to go on this excursion, you pay for it and you go. But if you wanted to go on this excursion by a certain time, like a birthday, an anniversary, uh, a special occasion right before college, wedding anniversary, or whatever, you have a limited period of time to reach this goal, which means that you have to put a specific quantity of money away to reach that goal. And you want to do what it takes, and then take it to account inflation for the holiday area if the event that you have is happening on a holiday. That's what I'm trying to tell you. He says, so seatbelts kill more people than not wearing seatbelts. 68% of individuals die from T-bone car crashes, even with a seatbelt on. So seatbelts prevent people from being ejected from a vehicle, but people are being ejected from a vehicle from head-on collisions, not from T-bone crashes. Anything more than 70-degree angle, you're less likely to see somebody being ejected out of the front windshield. And that's what the restrictive motion of the seatbelt is. When you go to pull the seatbelt too hard and it locks, it prevents you from being thrown into the steering wheel or thrown out of the windshield. Doesn't stop you from slamming your head up against the driver's side glass, and it doesn't stop you from cracking skulls with the person sitting next to you. It stops you from being ejected out of the front of the vehicle. So seatbelts are not designed to keep you from getting hurt. It's designed to keep you from being ejected out of the car, because when you go flying out of the vehicle, you're more likely to die in flight than what you would be staying inside of the vehicle. Yeah, sure, bro. Logic, buy gold. But it's a stupid move to sell stocks before 2026 to buy gold, because we've already proven that that's not logical, because gold will be $6,000 by this time next year, and cash stocks are going to be paying you regularly way more money than that over the monthly basis of the cash stocks that I've told you guys about on the show. So remember that. He said, bro, I agree with you. What is the price today of gold? I disagree with Raw Logic. I think both of y'all are insane for saying sell all of your stocks and go and buy gold, because you're not going to make that much money off of it. To gain at, what is it, $4,300 an ounce for gold, to gain $1,700 in a year to a year and a half off of your investment, you're not making that much money, because $4,300 to get, if you're lucky, $1,700 off of that is roughly around 10 to 15% interest. And you could have put that into ETFs and cash dividend stocks and gotten that amount of money, or the 18 to 20% that I'd be showing you guys on the platform. And you could have taken the interest and put that towards gold and silver, which would have been a smarter move, because you would be more diversified. But see, that's the thing. You should chase silver before you chase gold, because gold is valued and silver is undervalued, and there's just as much of a demand for silver as there is for gold, but there's a higher price for gold. When silver matches gold in value, you would have gained 100 times more profit off of silver, because where gold is like 4,300, silver is going to be between 50 and $40 an ounce. So it's better to chase silver, because you would have more shares of silver than it is to chase gold. Because if gold went up $10 an ounce, you would have $10 off of $4,300 worth of gold. And if silver went up $10 an ounce, you would have 100 ounces of silver for 1 ounce of gold. So the difference between getting $10 for $4,300 worth of gold and getting $100 for $4,300 worth of silver is that you made more money off of silver. So back to our topic about investing in kids, because you guys are started segueing into Tuesday's show. But you're talking about back in the 70s. We're in 2025, so that's not relevant at this moment, Michael. So where can someone buy physical gold? Well, you can go to certain gold places. Well, I gave you guys a list of places where you can go buy gold. If you just go back and check the episode where I was talking to you about gold, silver, and ETFs, I did a whole show covering this several months ago. And there's plenty of places where you can buy precious metals and precious minerals, because I did one show about precious metals and another show about precious minerals. So you guys can just go and look at those shows. You can just go into the YouTube chat and just the channel and just type gold in the search, and every episode that I talked about gold or precious metals will pop up, and you'll be able to look at that show. And there's a list of places. You can invest in the ETFs. You can go and buy the physical gold. The physical gold is not going to give you as much value, because you have to store it and potentially pay insurance on it. If you store it, there's a higher risk to it without insurance. But if you store it without the insurance, and it gets stolen, the gold is lost. But if you store it with the insurance, the money you're paying for holding the gold is going to probably offset the increased interest value over time for the gold. So then you're kind of breaking even, or actually taking a financial loss. And then you're dealing with the erosion factor of gold. So if you have it and it is eroding away over time, depending on the environment that it's in, then you'll likely lose the monetary value of the gold, because you have it in a condition where it's kind of evaporating, in a sense, eroding away. So all of this stuff changes the dynamic of, do you really want to spend the money to do that? So we're gonna get back to the main topic. He said, "What? Yes, let's see the difference. You will never get gold at $200, but you can start today. But if you started today, you'd start today at $53 for silver, so that when silver is 200,000 or 20, not 20, but like $2,000 an ounce, you would have gained 100% on it. So it's actually typically the average American is smarter for them to invest in ETFs, and it is smarter to invest in the cash dividend stocks through ETFs, where they have more liquidity in that than what they would in buying actual shares. And if they're paying dividends on it, you put your cash up on an ETF. Whenever you sell it, you get your money back tomorrow, as opposed to having to wait a couple days for it to sell, and then waiting a few weeks to get your money back, and then dealing with buying and sharing situations. Because who pays insurance on gold? Smart people. That's who. The same people who pay insurance on their diamonds, the people who put insurance on their paintings, their vases, their antiquities. They have a whole room in their house full of expensive stuff that no one gets to see or touch, and they have insurance on everything in that room. Yeah, smart people. Now, back to the main topic. At ages 13 to 11, because y'all are slipping, and we need that's a topic for Tuesday, not today. At ages 13 to 11, now is the foundation that you've set from before, from ages like between 6 and 8 up to 11. Now you want to start using that to build a habit, and this is going to be the age for simple structured allowance budgets, where, like I told you guys before, those simple structured allowance budgets could be based off of them putting in effort around the house, showing them things that they need to do so that they can earn money. And then you show them how every dollar that they receive can get split into 3 categories: either save, spend, or give. For example, if their weekly allowance was $15, the rule would be to save $5 for potentially for a new bike, $2 to give, and another $8 is their spend. And this is a simple system that teaches them that every dollar has a job. And that also allows them to build a more appropriate budget. then they begin setting slightly bigger goals as they get older because they go from a new bike to a new pair of sneakers, and then they're going to be learning the use of basic banking or custodial savings accounts to watch their balances grow. And that's when you're teaching them about going and get their banking account between 11 and 13, when you're showing them how to keep these accounts in good standings. You're going to show them how to read the policies from the banks, which type of accounts they're going to be using, because some accounts have usage expectations, some don't. And then they have some with minimum requirements and some don't. And that helps them change from just mommy can I have to let me see what's in my own account and what I'm willing to spend money on. Okay, so there is I didn't say rust, I said erode. And yes, the reason why they have gold and other precious minerals in temperature controlled rooms is because they don't just stay that way forever. The weight of the gold that you currently have is the weight of the gold that you're going to get paid for. With think, for example, a wedding ring. A wedding ring has a certain level of gold in it, but through wearing it, a certain quantity of it is eroded away. And the weight of the remaining gold after years of wearing this wedding ring is going to be the weight that you're going to be using at the pawn shop, where they're going to give you less than half of the value of the gold. So remember, you're saying rust and I'm saying erode. There's a difference. Now, between 11 and 13, you're going to start to introduce real world financial friction. So you're going to talk about sales tax. If you haven't already talked to them about it at 8 years old, when they're buying and selling stuff, because while they're selling stuff at the house without sales tax, they're going to have to buy this stuff at the store with sales tax. So if you didn't talk to them when they were selling candies at the house for 8 and 10 years old, you're talking about it now between 11 and 13. Why a $10 item actually costs more at the register than the sticker price. Then you got to teach your kids about the fraudulent actions of Walmart when they be putting stuff up there at a certain price, and then they don't honor the price tag. You get it off the shelf, it's priced at $5. You get to the register, it's $15. Ooh, we put it in the wrong spot. No, advertisement indicates that if you're advertising it for $15 at your store, where your stockbrokers put the wrong price on the item, that level of advertisement means I get that item at that price. And some Walmarts don't want to do that. Some Walmarts would prefer that that you pay whatever price is intended for the item. I tell y'all all the time, y'all should be walking around with video cameras, because if you had a video camera of you walking down this aisle, you get to this item. The item was, especially if you got from the time you got out the car until the time you got into the store, uninterrupted video, you walk down the aisle, you see an item, you want the item, you take it to the cash register, you go to buy it, and then they don't honor the price tag. You could actually have a legal action for false advertisement, because that's exactly what that is that if it's got one price on the shelf and a different price at the register, that's false advertisement. And then if the manager is trying to encourage you to pay the higher price instead of matching the price from the shelf, that's a situation that you can benefit from. Where a $40 item that was put on the wrong pricing scenario for $10, they'll either have to let it go for a $30 loss, or have the type of lawsuit that would profit you enough to buy a bunch of stuff from Walmart with profits off of that settlement. Is that they record us, so it would only make sense to document yourself at a store, especially if you live in California, because the way they got assault rifles at the front door, Walmart policy still is that they should not ask you for your receipt on the way out. They check your receipt because you don't know Walmart policy, but it is Walmart's policy that shoplifters are allowed to leave the store to fully prove that you intended on stealing that item, and then they will apprehend you later. They got you on surveillance. So it makes more sense for you to walk through Walmart with your surveillance camera, and when something don't happen the way you want it to happen, you've got evidence that you was acting the way you were supposed to be acting, and they wilding out. So if they accuse you of stealing some stuff, you got it on video that you're not doing that. But if they're fraudulently mispricing items, where Walmart did get out of the lawsuit for that, incorrectly pricing items, that you could come out of a class action for that. It gets extra money because you're not getting your money back. You're getting extra money off of the sale. And that'll be an issue because they can't tell you, oh, you're not allowed to record in here. Yes, I can. First of all, it's a public place. We can all record in here. You're recording us, so I can record us too. That's just one of those things. Now you got to deal with some other issues when you check the laws about whether or not you can record in a two-party recorder state. But typically in a public place, it's less restricted when it could be readily obtained by anybody passing by. Now, back to the main topic. If you introduce the most basic idea of compound growth by showing them an online calculator, plugging in the savings, just $5 a week, and then show them that over time their money starts to make its own money, it's their first glimpse of money making money. You can also show them the compound interest formulas that they're going to be utilizing in high school and how the compound interest can make sense when you're looking at the type of bank account that you're getting, because depending on the type of bank account that you get will depend upon whether or not you're going to have a high interest bank account or a low interest bank account or a CD or a money market account, or just going into the stock market or going into cryptocurrency or gold or silver or whatever the case may be, based on the percentage increase over time. Right? Now, the unorthodox angle for this level is going to be crucial because you must let them make small, safe money mistakes. So, for example, if they get a monthly budget of any kind for fun, but let's say like $40, and they blow it all on the first week on a video game, makeup, hair extensions, fingernails, whatever it is, food, whatever it is, because they're getting junk food and stuff like that. It's a simple, impulsive buy. Your job is not to bail them out later in the month. Let them feel the consequences for the next 3 weeks about the purchase that they made. Because when their friends decide to go to the movies the following week, they can't go because they can't afford it. The feeling will sting of that bad decision that they made right now in the moment, where you're teaching them long-term consequences for the decisions that they're making. And this being a low stakes situation, it is a financial vaccine. But when I was telling you earlier, Michael, about, hey, you want to stay out past my decision for curfew hour, I set the price. And I say, hey, you want to go out to the scenario? I can set the price based on risk. I say, hey, $100 for this event, $200 for the next event, and then that $200 an hour to go out or whatever the case may be. And oh, sure, if they've got it. But if they don't got it, you're setting a price and saying, well, you can go if you can afford to pay me to go. If you can't afford to pay me to go, you can't go. Now it's not, I'm just putting down my foot to say to put down my foot. I'm actually just making it clear to you that, this is the standard. This has always been the rule. Now that you have to execute the rule, if you didn't save to stay out past curfew, you're not staying out past curfew. My curfew won't change. You're going to get an extension on the deadline. See what I'm saying? It will immunize these children against making similar financial mistakes later in life, especially with thousands of dollars on credit cards and taking out unnecessary loans, or doing this ridiculous payment option with purchases online. You are letting them associate choice with real outcomes, with early and safe exposure, which allows them to rationalize more effectively how to navigate around that. Now, at ages 14 to 16, this is where the simulation ends and the real games begin, because this is where the age of the first W-2 job comes in, if they haven't already gone down a path of being an entrepreneur. Now, the first real paycheck is going to come from this. This is the single piece of paper that has one of the most powerful teaching tools that you will ever encounter. And 99% of people misunderstand. So when you get the first check, you'll feel a rush of excitement, right? Then a wave of confusion comes over. You'll do the math on your hourly wage and you'll see the final number that is much, much smaller than what you calculated in your head. Your first question will be, where did my money go? And this is your introduction to your silent business partner, which is the United States government. Look at your pay stub, and let's say you earn like $300, but the check is more to the magnitude of $245. Sit down and highlight the deductions. FICA, which is federal and state. And this isn't theft. It's the cost of doing business in a civilized society, reasonably speaking. Understanding where it goes to the roads, schools, Social Security, you would be able to understand why it's coming out of your check. Also recognizing for those individuals who haven't heard, because I tell you guys this on a regular basis, that if you invested in your local public schools and got a voucher for that, then you would be able to use that on your tax returns and get tax deductions on the money that you spend. So if you wanted to get your child with more respect in their public school than trying to play to the tune of the reputation of a private school, your kid could just donate money to the school for his own public education. The reputation of the child that attends the school, that pays for their own education, is going to be far higher than the reputation of the child that is getting free lunch at the school because they can't afford to buy food. Teaching your child financial responsibility, also teaching your child the money-making responsibilities that follow by the benefits of that money-making responsibility, puts your child in a better position. And it starts building their prestige at a younger age. Because now you're not asking for the parents for the field trip, you're paying for your own dang field trip, and you just need the parents' consent to go. Now, understanding this desimplifies the process. Your goal isn't to complain about what's going on with the money coming out of the check. It is to understand the game. So from now on, you're going to plan your life around the net pay, not the gross pay, which is what we do. We think about how much money we're supposed to make, and then we assume roughly close to 10 to 20% coming out of our check in taxation, and what we allegedly should have left over, that's what we're expecting to have for our upcoming check. We count our money before we get it. But with this real income, you open a teen checking and savings account, which should be higher access than the original checking and savings account for the preteen. And then you're going to practice more budgeting for real expenses, like gas money to go places, going out with friends, the kid's phone. And you're also going to create your first emergency mini fund. And it's going to be a small pile of cash, perhaps $200, maybe $500, set aside for whatever the kid's going to need. When your bike gets a flat tire, when you lose textbooks, or other unexpected costs, they'll have extra emergency funds set aside to go and take care of that issue. Now, in this scenario, you're going to teach your children financial responsibility to a different level because you're going to teach them about not talking about how much money they have. And then you're going to teach them about not being convinced by other friends to use your money to pay for your other friends' entertainment. Because if your kids got $500 and they're trying to impress their friends want to go on something that costs like $600, they don't have enough money. You got enough money to cover the squad. Even if they don't like you, they'll take you with them to get you to pay for everybody so that they can go somewhere they couldn't afford to go. So we're going to let them know how, start teaching you from small how to observe being used, abused, extorted, bullied, all these different things, so that you're keeping your money in your pocket by not letting anybody know that you have any money to begin with. Now, for the next unorthodox angle, you want to try privileges from financial responsibility, which is what I was talking about earlier, extending the curfew by a financial amount. For example, you as a parent, you cover a base phone plan. Me, I'd be like, fuck it, pay for your own phone bill. But if you're going to cover the base phone plan, the parent's coverage on the base phone plan will be a 5G data plan, a basic 5G data plan. And if the teen wants an upgraded phone or more data or more features on the cell phone, they pay the difference. So if they want that iPhone, and say that iPhone is $15 or $20 a month for that iPhone, they're going to pay for that out of their own money. So, mom, dad, I want a new phone. All right, I'll drive you to a store. Get some gas money. Give me $10 for gas. I'll take you to the store, and you can pick out the phone that you want. And when they grab the phone that they want, you're going to be standing at the register staring because you're not pulling no money out your purse to cover the phone. They're going to pay for it themselves. This is going to create an immediate, tangible link between their lifestyle choices and their work ethic. Because if they don't have enough money to get this phone, they're going to have to put in more work. And when you start getting them at that age where they start working, you want to get them at that age where they start reasonably contributing to some of the things around the house so that they can start fundamentally being capable of planning financial responsibility, because if all they have is impulse buying decisions, not self-sustainability decisions, they're not going to factor in self-sustainability when they're factoring in their desires. So if you put them in a choice between going on an upcoming field trip that the kid's going to pay for themselves that they want to go on versus buying this expensive cell phone that they technically don't need, they might decide to get a cheaper cell phone so that they can go on a field trip. They're going to learn if you want more, you have to earn more. That's simple. Now, at age 17 and 18, this is the chapter where everything accelerates, because you're about to make decisions that will affect the next decade of your life. And we start with the most misunderstood product on the planet, which is credit. A credit card is not free money. It's a very powerful tool, though. Used correctly, it will build your wealth. Used incorrectly, it will destroy it. Your mission is to start building a perfect credit score from day one. Now, you can kind of help your kids along the way if you've established a line of credit that is in good standings, and then you add your child on as an authorized user of that line of credit, which allows that child to be able to have a better credit score starting out. But you also are going to do this by getting a student or a secured credit card, student credit card or a secured credit card, using it for one small reoccurring purchase like a Spotify subscription or paying on the cell phone bill. And this is the golden rule: setting up auto pay to pay the full statement balance every month. Then, by doing this, you will never pay a cent in interest. So you're going to put something on that card, and then you're going to pay the entire statement bill before the end of the statement. And that way you never have to pay a cent towards interest. Now, this is also the age of big decisions, because you're on like 16, 17 years old, 17, 18 years old. So instead of blindly following a crowd to college, you stop and compare, like we did at the beginning of the show, the cost and return on investment of a 4-year degree versus a trade school path. For example, look up the starting salary for a desired job and compare that to the debt required. Is a $200,000 degree worth it if the starting salary is $40,000? You learn the real difference between scholarships and loans, because scholarships you don't have to pay back, loans you do. Grants you don't have to pay back. You'll learn the real difference between the scholarships and the loans, and then you'll make a simple multi-year savings plan for the car, the school, and for moving out. And you'll probably have to do them one at a time, or there's a possibility that you can do them all at once, depending on how much money you're making versus how much money you're not spending. But after you've done these plans, now you're going to start investing. You're going to open up a custodial Roth IRA. It's a special investment account where your money grows and can be withdrawn in retirement, completely 100% tax-free. So inside this account, you don't gamble on the stocks. You buy a simple, low-cost S&P 500 index fund. For example, you transfer $50 from your paycheck and you buy a fractional share of a ETF like VOO. You own a tiny piece of $500 or 500 of the biggest companies in America, which is like placing one single bet that the American economy will be bigger in the future than what it is today. It's the most reliable way for beginners to build long-term wealth. Next, you can show them this podcast, and you can show them all of the stocks that we have come across doing research on individual stock purchases and the valuation of high interest versus low interest stocks, the difference in volatility, and which ones pay monthly versus which ones that don't pay at all, where you can decide which stocks you can individually handpick for higher returns and higher performance. The difference between ex-dividend dates, record dates, and payout dates, where you can navigate, nope, not Jimmy John's, where you can navigate taking everything that you bring in and figure out how to reimburse it back out to turn out a profit, which is one of the things that we like to do, right? Make money for us. Now, if you see how the system was built to hold you back, because none of this information was given to us before, and you guys want to know more, and you want a lot more knowledge that they don't teach you, you guys got to make sure that you do me a favor while you're running through this podcast. And you want to hit those like buttons, and you want to mash those reaction buttons, because that's going to let the algorithm know on each platform that we're going live on right now that we will give you the information that you need to be successful. Let the algorithm know that more people need to see us. So, special shout out to Exalted Born. Appreciate you for coming. The unorthodox angles here, when we start talking about building up that financial portfolio, is to see the matrix. You ask a parent to walk you through the real monthly budgets line by line, And as young adults, by doing that, you be able to sit down and read a real contract, which can help you with negotiating your first car deal, because you'll be able to see a car lease versus purchasing the car cash up front, a car insurance policy versus a credit card agreement option, and you'll be able to see how adult money actually moves, where the fees are hidden, and how the system are designed. And this is going to be the truth behind the curtain of financial success. Is that how late we talking? Is that I'm back. What do you mean how late we talking? How late we're talking about investing in stocks and bonds and stuff? We're talking about 19, 20 years old. That's what we're talking about. That would be a good age to get in there. I mean, you could open up a portfolio for them at a younger age, but oh, you say yeah, in general for tonight? She probably another 20 minutes. We're on our way out. Looking at, because we got about 12 pages left, about 15, 20 pages. What, 15, 20 minutes? Outside of side conversations, about 15, 20 minutes. I technically I got plenty of time because I don't have anything to do for another 3 hours. But I got about 15, 20 more minutes worth of information outside of side conversations. Because the 19 and 20-year-old age range is the last part of the 10-year plan, because the 10-year plan starts at age 8 and ends at age 20, which is technically a 12-year plan. But the fact is that from age 8, when they first start learning how to acknowledge money, until age 20, when they start learning how and practicing actively to use money, how much stuff they can learn from you year over year, so that over that 10 years, it makes sense why they're doing it the way they're doing it. And it makes sense why you're setting goals that you're setting. And if you, and like when I was telling you guys about like taxing them on curfew hours and stuff to that effect, you could set flat rates on an hour by hour flat rate, and then you have a risk assessment. And then you say, well, you have a certain percentage of extra money for risk assessment. So depending on where you're going versus how long you're going to be gone determines exactly how much it costs for you to go out there. And if they can afford to cover that, then they can go. They got to tell you the truth about where they're going, because if they go out there and you end up at somewhere else, you got to know where they're at, because if they end up in trouble, you're still going to come and get them, even if they don't have a curfew. But you have to be able to know where they are, so that if they're in trouble, you know how to come and get them. So you're not going to tell them no, you're just going to tell them how much it costs. And then when you start talking about the ideologies of deception, if they lied to you about where they were going the last time, you're not going to tell them no about where they're going next time. You're just going to add the fact that they're not telling you the truth into the risk assessment and a higher premium for deception. And that's going to make them be either more honest or not go anywhere, because you can't trust them to go where they say they were going to go. See what I'm saying? If you're teaching them the responsibility along the way, and then incorporating currency throughout their childhood, they'll learn different things through different experiences, where they will know how to make, save, and invest money. And anything that they're getting back from you gives you the ability to put more money back into them. So instead of you taking half of your paycheck and giving it to your kids because they have a pulse, through learning experiences, you get reimbursed for their decisions. And then you get to utilize the money they reimbursed you to reinstill it back into them, to show them something else. So it's a revolving door, or a closed system of currency amongst the family that is learning experiences, which is why I say doing it this way. I mean, if you know what you're doing, then it'll make sense for the kids to learn it from you. If you don't know what you're doing, then I mean, they're going to probably get more money out of you than what they're going to learn from you. They said, I heard that marijuana got changed on criminalization. I didn't hear that. That's a definite side topic. I didn't hear about that. From what I understand, as far as recreational use, marijuana is allowed to be utilized by individuals. It is not allowed to be sold without licensing and permits. So if you do not get your marijuana business registered with the United States government and your inventory documented and reported by the United States government, then it is considered unlawfully obtained, which means that you will still be illegally selling the drugs. So the laws that have changed about marijuana is that you can have possession of the marijuana in certain cities and states around the country, and you can use the marijuana in certain cities and states around America, but that is only going to be considered like a Schedule 1 or Schedule 2 narcotic, like a medication. Because you can go to jail for oxycontins, for prescription oxycontin, the same way you can go to jail for prescription marijuana. But you're not supposed to sell oxycontin the same way you're not supposed to sell marijuana without the proper permits. So they have not changed the criminalization of that I am aware of, because the only criminalization of it is the possession for intent to distribute. And you would be in possession of a medical substance, ideally, because medicinal marijuana is the same as recreational marijuana. It's just why you bought it. But the possession of a controlled substance with the intent to distribute is still criminalized. I have heard that they have changed that. He said they said it is now the same as Tylenol. It has been signed into law 2 days ago. Well, I will have to verify that. I can go ahead and take a look and see what that's about. Because again, as a medication, you're not supposed to have 20 pounds of Tylenol that you're selling out the trunk of your car. Let's see, before we finish our topic about 18 to 20-year-olds, because that would have been a perfect discussion for Sunday, since today we're talking about teaching your kids about how to make, save, and invest money. Let's see, because you wanted to say real quick about how marijuana owns you. Let's see real quick, because then we're going to get back to the main topic, because we really only have the last 2 years, 19 and 20-year-olds, and what we're teaching them. Let's see what laws to verify this real quick before we go anywhere. I see Kansas marijuana laws. So let's see, at the federal level in 2025, we do see some, but Kansas state law has not changed yet. Marijuana remains illegal under Kansas law. Neighboring Missouri continues to allow both medical and recreational cannabis for adults 21 and over. In December of 2025, President Trump issued an order directing that marijuana be moved from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 under federal law, which reduces federal penalties and expands research access. And this change does not itself legalize recreational use nationwide. State laws on possession, sale, and use still control what is legally accessible where you can live. So Kansas still criminalizes marijuana possession, sale, and use, and there is no operational medical or recreational cannabis programs as of late 2025. And several bills to legalize or regulate medical marijuana, such as the SB 135 and SB 171, and to reduce penalties, HB 2363 and SB 295 have been introduced, but all failed or stalled in the process. So no law has actually changed yet. But let's see what a Schedule 3 substance under federal law is indicating real quick. because that is different real quick. Then we're going to get back to our main topic. So under federal drug laws, a Schedule 3 is a category for controlled substances that have accepted medical use and a lower moderate potential for abuse compared to Schedule 1 or Schedule 2 drugs. If marijuana is moved to Schedule 3, it is still illegal under federal law, but it is treated more like certain prescription medications. For example, products with codeine or testosterone uh, than like heroin or LSD. Now, what Schedule 3 means is that the drugs are defined as having an accepted medical use with moderate or low potential for physical or psychological dependence, lower than Schedule 1 or Schedule 2. And examples of Schedule 3 substances include some combination painkillers with codeine, certain antibiotic steroids, and some medications for addiction treatment, which is not Tylenol at all. Effects of moving marijuana to Schedule 3 would allow marijuana to remain a federally controlled substance. Manufacture, distribution, and possession would still technically violate the Controlled Substance Act, but penalties and regulatory treatment differ from Schedule 1. So the change is expected to make medical and scientific research easier, since Schedule 3 drugs face fewer restrictions on studies and prescribing than Schedule 1 drugs. And the limits of the change, where rescheduling to Schedule 3 does not itself legalize recreational marijuana nationwide. The state laws on medical and recreational use still control what is legal in each state, and federal agencies like the Department of Transportation can still bar marijuana use for certain safety sensitive jobs. So you can still have a medical marijuana job, and medical marijuana card, and not be able to smoke weed or have weed in your system when you're operating heavy machinery on a manual labor job, even if it has become a Schedule 3. So hopefully that helps you out with your understanding with that, Dylan. I greatly appreciate you bringing that up. But no, the criminalization, you are correct, it did get changed. It got reduced ever so slightly, from like a high-end felony to a lesser felony. Is that, maybe we are going to war with Venezuela to take over the drug trade? Doubt it. Oh, my bad. I got the 2 days mixed up. Low dependency than what they call potheads. Well, you could become a drug addict on aspirin and Tylenol. You can take too many. You could become reliant on painkillers, naproxen. You could become reliant on that. So, but also you got to think about quitting marijuana is a lot easier than quitting heroin or methamphetamines. Very few people have to put themselves in rehab to stop smoking weed. The likelihood that you can quit smoking weed about as easy as you can quit smoking cigarettes, where cigarettes probably have a higher dependency than marijuana. The fact is that you could just stop. You just choose not to. Right? Naproxen can kill your liver, and memory loss is a side effect of marijuana. So, then the carbon monoxide that's going into your esophagus has the same side effects as smoking, where you could develop cancers or corrosion of your esophagus from the heat from smoking marijuana. Not because the marijuana itself is bad, but because when you set fire to it, the heat and smoke that you inhale into your lungs damages your lungs and damages your esophagus the same way the heat and smoke from the cigarettes damage your esophagus and damage your lungs. So it's not, he said, sweater weather. It is. It's cold up there. Yes, it is. So it does do something a little bit different. So you're dealing with some cold too. All right. Now back to it so we can get through the rest of these. uh, because yeah, the most medications and most consumed products have an effect on the body, and while it does, it depending on how much of it you use depends on how much it affects you. Okay, lower dosages might have lower impacts, but it still has an impact nonetheless. Even if your tolerance rolls up a little bit, the difference is going to be the usage. Oh, real quick, let's touch base on this before we get back to the main topic. He said the tobacco leaf on the blunt is nicotine as well. Look at that. So when you go and buy them Optimos and those White Owls, and you take all the tobacco out of it, and then you use the leaf itself to roll your blunt. You're rolling your blunt with nicotine. So you got marijuana and nicotine. You're not taking a actual leaf off of a tree that you've grown in your house. We have an all natural blunt. And then when you think about the blunt wraps themselves, the white paper that you use, that is processed. And that processed material has chemicals in it. So when you set it to fire, equivalent to cigarettes, you're going to have certain side effects from the chemical intake. While it's less than all of the chemicals that they put into the tobacco itself in cigarettes, it is still inherently not as healthy for you as if you was to take the weed and crush it up and sprinkle it into your food as garnish, or blend it into your drink and drink it, or infuse it into your sugars and drink it. If you did not burn it, it would inherently be healthier for you, where the side effects of pain relief and the stuff to that effect, inflammation and swelling and stuff, would effectively be conquered without the side effects of setting fire to it. So while there is a way, there is always a better way. And ironically, the funniest thing about it is that if the weed was grounded up and put into your food, and if the weed was grounded up and put into your drink, say for example, if you drink tea, and I have not done this yet, but it is something on my mind. Instead of having herbal tea, why not have herbal tea, like legit? Still some marijuana and some water, and make you some tea where you have a marijuana drink. You don't smell like weed. The biggest issue that you have is that the weed smell is on your clothes and in your car when you get pulled over by the cop. But if the weed was in your drink, the effects of the weed would be in your system, not on your breath or on your clothes, and it would not mess up your esophagus or your lungs, and you would be able to get the same feeling, if not more, than what you would have got by setting fire to it. But your traditional practice of break it up, roll it up, smoke it up is just a trend from the 70s and 80s, where that's what cool people used to do. So that's what people are still doing to be cool, not because it's beneficial. So when you think about getting the marijuana and using it for beneficial purposes, there's other ways that you could do it. And it actually makes more sense that way, because when has a police officer ever took a nicotine test strip and put it in your fucking coffee? I'm just trying to tell you. But if they roll down the window and a cloud of smoke come out of the car, now you got drug dogs on your car. But in both situations, you could have been just as equally fucked up. Oh, hippie brew system tea. That's what I'm talking about. And not too many people see it that way. See, here on This and That, when we talk about this, that, and everything in between, I'm going to teach you something every chance I get. Every chance I get. And a lot of states have the ability for you to have one or two marijuana plants in your house without having to worry about catching a drug charge, because it's for personal use. And you can take that bud, you can take either use the grinder or use a blender and puree the shit, then sprinkle it into your spaghetti and meatballs, sprinkle it into your ramen noodles. You can grind it up and sprinkle it into, put it into the coffee pot and filter it and distill it into your coffee, distill it into your tea, and then take it with you on the go. You got your 36-ounce bottle of marijuana, and take it with you, and in your water bottle. And nobody's going to be like, what's in your drink? Lipton tea. When they smell it, they smell tea. What's in your drink? Folgers Crystal's coffee. When they smell it, they smell coffee. But when you drink it, you taste weed. If they could put it in gummies, if they could put it in brownies, if they could put it in cookies, if they could put it in your macaroni and cheese, why not put it in your Coke? Why not put it in your Sprite? Why not put it in your calf pal and drink it instead of smoking it? Where now you can likely bring it with you to public places and nobody's going to judge you because you're not sitting there burning a joint in their presence, which has its own stereotypical image. See what I'm saying? So they take the leaf and grind them up. And I thought marijuana leaves were just a cigar leaf, just psychoactive. No. So the leaf, the marijuana leaf itself, looks like a leaf off of a tree. The bud is like a nugget, is what they would call it. It's like a bunched up together a piece of the plant that you can grind down and then set on fire. But instead of grinding it down and setting it on fire, you can grind it down and then incorporate it into the food and drinks that you consume. And two plants should be able to keep you pretty saucy on a regular basis where you wouldn't even need a dealer if it's for self-use only. So it's the stalk part of the plant. It's the seed. I wish I had a picture of it that I could show you. Let me see if I can find a picture of it for you because that might help you understand what's going on. And then we're going to get back to the the main topic because we still have to finish that part because I was teaching y'all something. Wait, okay, so here we go. I'm gonna put this up there, and then let me open this in a new tab, and then I'm gonna put this on the screen for you so you can see what I'm talking about. I'll be able to. Oh no, you can bring up and put it into your beer. Give me just a second. I'm gonna put this up on the screen for you so you can see what I'm talking about. They actually do have marijuana that is infused in other drinks and stuff. So here, this is what I'm referring to real quick before we get back to the main topic. So you see let me make it full screen. You see that marijuana bud thing. Now that's what the people are selling on the streets, and they're selling it for a pretty penny. Now what they do is they can grind it down, and then you have like a bag of shredded bud, and depending on how much of it by the ounce is what they sell. These little buds here come off of a plant that also has leaves, and that plant might have a certain number of them, 5, 10, 20 of them or whatever. And if you had two plants, you might be able to take one bud off a day or something to that effect, and you could grind it up and then use it in certain situations. And if instead of grinding it up and rolling it up and setting it on fire, you could grind it up and then sprinkle it in your food. You could put it in your beer. You could put it in your drinks. You could distill it into the stuff that you consume, where you still can get the effects of the marijuana without actually having to be seen rolling a joint, lighting up a joint, or be seen carrying bags of it that can be rolled up and set on fire, which prevents you from having to deal with the negative consequences of being in possession of it, because police officers don't look for juicy juice boxes with marijuana in it. They're not looking for like Gatorade Kool-Aid containers full of marijuana in it. They're looking for the actual bud itself. And if it's not there, If rolling papers are there and all this other stuff is not there, they're not looking for it. But if it was in your drink, you could probably have 5 gallons of marijuana, of liquid marijuana in the backseat of your vehicle, and nobody would tell you a thing. See what I'm saying? But if you had 3 little baggies on your passenger seat, you're going to jail. So you can accomplish your goal by doing it a different way, just by finding alternatives to the norm. Now, so until this becomes mainstream, ain't nobody gonna be doing this. But when this becomes a thing, then they're gonna be like, let me test your drink and see if there's marijuana in it, right? Too bad there isn't a beer tree. There's not going to be a beer tree because beer, the creation of beer, is a process that requires you to distill, and the hops and all of this other stuff, that in order for you to get it to the drinking beer part of things. So until you get to that part, you don't actually have what we identify as beer. But you can brew beer in your own bathtub, or if you get those 2 gallon water jugs, you can brew beer at your own house. And you can brew the beer with the hops and the marijuana in the hops, so that you can have marijuana beer that's self-brewed at your house. And because you're doing it at the house, the once the beer is ready, you can drink it at your leisure, and always have the ability to stay on that level without having to worry about negative consequences from law enforcement. Last comment: have you heard about the new cell phone company that doesn't use any of your data, called Free? Nope, I haven't heard from that neither. That I'll do some research on, and I'll talk to you about on tomorrow's show, because I do want to get the rest of today's show done. But I will look into that. That particular, from what I understand, a cell phone company that does not use your data, I'm assuming, is uh, not taking the information off of your transactions that you do with your cell phone, which is kind of keeping you off the grid for advertising. That's going to be a new thing, but they're bouncing off of T-Mobile satellites. So your network is going to be limited, because Trump came out with a Trump phone in September, and he's got like doctors and stuff like that on the phone plan, where you can get a concierge doctor's phone call through the phone plan, and get medical advice from a medical professional. And you had to pay what, 47.49 or 49.47, something like that. Or no, 45.47, because it was coined after his 45th term and his 47th term. So less than $50 a month plus taxes for a phone that is a basic phone with like very good features for elderly people and sick people. Because if medical advice is free on a $50 a month phone bill, that is cheaper than Metro phone, and you can get free doctor's care, free therapists, and stuff to that effect on that same phone bill. So, but it is not a widely used, because it just came out. The company just came out this year, so the company's only been alive since September, which what, October, November, December, like 3 months. So it's not like there's a billion people using this phone. But I'll look into that phone company that you're talking about, and I'll get the ins and outs of it, and I'll try to see if I can discuss some of it either tomorrow or Sunday, because I had a pretty thick topic for you tomorrow. But if I can squeeze it in tomorrow, I will. Now, back to today's topic. Once you get to that 19 and 20-year-old era, you can say welcome to the full launch of your financial plan. You're now building the financial infrastructure for your adult life, and this is where you start creating your first full adult budget, where you're accounting for the big fours, which is rent, food, transportation, and insurances, plus any debt payments that you've incurred over your childhood. So if you were taught wisely by your family members, you would be able to decide what kind of lifestyle that you're going to live. For example, on a $2,500 take home pay after taxes pay, you might have like $1,000 worth of rent, which is over 60% of your income. $300 for food, $150 for transportation, $100 worth of insurance. And that might actually be car insurance, not like health insurance and other stuff. But you stop seeing a budget as restrictions and you see it as a blueprint for the freedom, for the type of lifestyle that you want to live. Now, your top priority is building full emergency funds, which 3 to 6 months worth of your basic living expenses held in a simple savings account or a high interest money market account or something to that effect, where your core expenses, sometimes being around $1,750 a month, would have your goal to be at least about $5,250 in a simple savings account, or $6,000 or $7,000 in a simple savings account. And this cash cushion is going to end up being your defense. Now, younger in life, if you understand that changing jobs is happening more frequently, you might want to have a goal of getting closer to $7,000 to $10,000 in your emergency fund in case you have to be unemployed for 2 or 3 months while you're changing jobs, because the job that you got wasn't the one that you wanted. It was just paying the bills that you had at the time, and then you found a better job, and in that transition phase, you still had to pay your bills. It's going to give you the freedom to take calculated risks in your career and investments without the fear of being wiped out by a single bad month. If you practice using credit responsibly, you'll be able to continue building your score. As your parents phase out of your lifestyle as the primary funder of your standard of living, you will be able to learn how to set automatic investing from every paycheck into your Roth IRAs and other accounts. You'd be able to build wealth now, which is set mostly on autopilot. You would also be able to learn the defensive side of money instead of being afraid of. Nice. Special shout out to New Lift. Instead of being afraid of getting debt, you would be able to utilize that debt as a benefit, because when you leverage a revolving line of credit versus installment loans, you are diversifying your credit history, which diversifies your credit score, which gives you a higher credit score, but it also allows you to only borrow money when you need it to do something reasonably decent with, meaning like instead of borrowing money to buy a car, you might borrow money to consolidate like 6 months worth of expenses and then go and buy a car cash up front. And the money that you're now paying on this installment loan would allow you to use that installment loan for 12 to 18 months and then pay off that installment loan where you took out like a $5,000 or $10,000 loan. And now you're paying off that loan so that that installment loan boosts your credit up. Instead of, or if you got the installment loan as an installment cash loan and you use the installment cash loan to go buy a car cash up front, you have separated the title for the car from the loan. If you get the cash loan separate and then go to the dealership with the cash, buy the car cash up front, you are taking the first steps of separating your debt from your assets. So you're not financing the car where you're using the asset as leverage for the cash that you're using to buy the vehicle. You're going to separate that and you're going to leverage something else to get the loan and then use the cash to get the car. So you could get a $7,000 loan. You're going to tell them that you want a cash loan for bill consolidation or whatever, credit building or whatever. They're going to give you the cash, even if the cash is backed by your emergency fund. The fact is that the cash is not tied to your asset. And then you can take that loan, go and buy you a car cash up front, pay off the loan, and your car is free and clear. And if you do this through a credit union, it's a lot cheaper than doing it through a bank. And those interest rates might even be cheaper than a car loan. Think about that. But in addition to that, you'd be able to teach your kids how to spot scams. Because if it's too hard to pay a source, it's probably a scam. You learn how to protect your personal information so that you're not widely advertising unnecessary things. Like I know we like to get that bumper sticker that says that our kid is a honor student in a certain high school, but that's personal information that one, you have children, and two, what school your children go to. Certain decals on your car that identify how many members of your household, including a dog, is there. Uh, some people have these veils that says baby on board, but even when it's not on board, it shows that there's a child that belongs to this vehicle. When you deal with certain non-violent crimes that people don't talk about in the news all the time, kidnapping, blackmails, extortion, the information that you widely advertise um, typically gives people the leverage to take advantage of that public knowledge, because you got to remember, most of your stuff is accessible online. You could put somebody's name into Google Advanced Search, Gemini, and depending on the person's name and how much public stuff they post about themselves, you can find what political party they're in, the last 5 or 10 houses they've had, the last 15, 20 phone numbers they had, the last job that reported them as an employee, the family members that were reported from US Census, what jobs they had, what phone numbers they had, how many people have lived at the same address that you lived at the same time that you lived there, which shows who all you live with. And all of this public information sometimes can be gathered for free. So when you start tipping people off as to who you are by the decals you put on the outside of your car and stuff like that, you start really giving people the opportunity to access enough of your supposed to be protected personal information to a magnitude where they can extort your identity and use that for identity theft. You also be able to learn ways on how to secure your accounts from these threats, how to separate your direct cash accounts from secured and restricted preloaded debit and credit cards, where if somebody gains access to that particular type of card, they would only be able to take off of that card what is put on that card, because that card is not directly attached to another account. Like PayPal, you have the option on PayPal to have your purchases come directly from your bank account or only come from the available capital on your PayPal account. If your PayPal account has to be preloaded before you can charge stuff to your account, nobody can steal your PayPal account and then wipe all the money out of your bank account. They can only take what is accessed on your PayPal account. There's other online transactional accounts too, like Cash App and I think Viho or Vulu, or I can't remember what it was, but there's other ones that transfer money back and forth between individuals with the money that's on your active account. And this allows you to utilize certain transactions over the internet and over the cell phone connections where you're not directly connecting your personal finances to those transactions. But also teaching your kids at a young age, because if you remember, we had opened up an account with the 8-year-old and opened up an account. Well, somewhere between 8 and 13, we opened up one account for the kid. And then at like 16, 18-year-old, we open a second account for the kid. And if you're teaching a kid the difference between the account where direct deposits go into and the account where transactions come out of, being two separate accounts, your incoming money is not impacted by your outgoing money. So if there's a financial dispute, you can relocate your money to a different account to have outgoing money go somewhere else. Also teaching your kids the capabilities of leveraging credit cards in a responsible fashion where you're only spending what you have money for. The credit cards could also be a buffer with reoccurring payments versus one-time installment payments towards your credit cards, which keeps your credit cards at zero balances. And it also prevents your personal checking account from being impacted by unauthorized or incorrect charges to your credit card. And with 6 or more credit cards, between 16 18, you would find yourself with a larger line of credit and a larger quantity of options to offset. So if you have a dispute on one card, you can always use another. The ultimate unorthodox angle for this particular phase is to stop guessing and start designing. If you create a life cost sheet, you get brutally specific about the lifestyle that you want at age 25 when you're making these decisions at age 20, 19, and 20, which is 5 or 6 years into the future. What city do you want to live in? What apartment do you want to rent, or a house, or whatever? What car do you want to drive? How often do you want to travel? And you do the research and you get the real cost and you add it all up to get single numbers. Your target monthly goal is going to be how much you're going to need to spend that to live that type of lifestyle. Then you can go to certain websites like Zillow and other real estate websites, find out what rental properties are in the area where you want to live. Say, for example, $1,600 a month or whatever. If you want a specific kind of car, research that and see what the real payments are on that car if you're not going to buy it cash up front. If it's like $400 a month or whatever, then add these costs up for the dream lifestyle that you want to have, but you're going to be more realistic to your capabilities, right? And when you get that single number, this is your target monthly income. Now you can reverse engineer a plan and see, can that income be achieved with the skills and the savings rates that you are truly acquiring? Where is this required to build the lifestyle that you want, or do you need to make adjustments and invest more or save more or earn more so that the dream that you want to have becomes a project, not just a dream? Then when you realize this, you realize that from 8 to 20, your child has all the tools and resources that they need to be successful. And from 20 to 25, they're implementing that on their own. If in the event that they need backing from a parent before they run off to a bank or a third-party loan shark lendership style situation, they have the capabilities, because you've already taught them these types of behavior patterns, to then come back and get a loan from the parents instead of just saying, hey, mom and dad, can I borrow money? Can you loan me some money at preferable interest rates to help me accomplish X, Y, and Z goal? And as a parent, since you've established this relationship with your children, you're going to have whatever money you would have given them in good faith. You can now loan it to them and get a return on it. And the reason why you're getting a return on that investment is that it helps you later have more money to lend to your kid for bigger problems, where you become your kid's bank instead of your kid getting it from the bank. If you're the financer of your kid's car, you buy the car cash up front, and then the kid's paying you back with interest. So now it's not just what your credit score looks like. If I've got $10,000 to buy your car, how much interest are you going to pay me for this car? I buy the car cash up front, and you give me the car, or you give me the money back. Now, it changes the dynamic because you can't ground your child and take their car from them because they own that car. But again, actions have consequences, and usually those consequences have capital consequences, and that capital can come out of their assets. He said, I think it would be a good idea to have 4 different bank accounts. You should technically have 2 different kinds of accounts in every state in the country. You should have at least 1 credit union in all 50 states that you can access, and at least 1 bank account in all 50 states in the country. And you should have a savings account potentially in all states in the country. And the reason for this is because the banks in the South are not in the North. The banks in the East are not in the West. The banks in Central America are not in the East or in the West. So you have exactly 6 different regions of banks. And if you travel anywhere in the United States, while your credit card is utilizable anywhere in the United States, if you have to go directly to the bank for a transactional issue, your bank may not have a reciprocal branch. They might share ATM machines where you can withdraw money. But if you have to go inside, or if you have to withdraw money from the account that is larger than the ATM threshold of your bank account, you're stuck. But if you have another bank in the city or state that you're going to, you could wire transfer money from one account that you own to another account that you own, and then go to the bank and withdraw that large quantity of money directly out of your bank. And instead of forwarding like 20 grand to a specific state all at once, if you know that coming soon you're about to take a large quantity of money out, like say $10,000 to buy your kid a car, you can move money from multiple different accounts into this account over time, like $200-300 per account every month until the 10,000 is in that one account. Then you take that one $10,000 and you go and charge for the car. Is it 4 accounts? Because that is twice as many as the average amount of divorces in America. Well, when it comes down to divorces in marriage with prenuptial agreements, you have to identify all of the accounts that you have anyway, because if you leave any out, those accounts are not included in the prenuptial agreement, which means that the wife can take access to those accounts. Also, if you in your account or in your prenuptial agreement disclose that this is allegedly all the assets that you have, but you have more assets that's not disclosed on that account, then those assets being found could turn into a breach of contract, which would nullify the prenuptial agreement. Now, you don't necessarily need to go down that path if you put all the assets into a trust, especially an offshore trust. If you put all the assets into an offshore trust and the wife that you married is on the trust as a beneficiary, she's guaranteed for life, even after she divorced you, to receive capital from this trust as she has invested in this trust. Now, not a lot of men think of this shit, but if she called herself trying to divorce you and get alimony, and you're like, well, Your Honor, she's getting X number of dollars a month from the trust, the divorce doesn't change that. She's already guaranteed money from the trust. It is less likely that a judge is going to say, oh, but she needs more. Because a lot of the times, the wife is going to get between $1,000 to $3,000 a month, depending on whether or not they have kids from you, that they're going to be expecting you to give. And that's going to be anywhere between $12,000 and $36,000 a year, depending on how much your income is. And if that happens, and they're actually getting that $1,000 to $3,000 a month from the trust anyway, fuck the prenup. It's like, well, Your Honor, she's already getting from the family trust $36,000 a year. What more should she get? Because while I'm contributing to this, after she leaves, she's going to be getting this much of it on a monthly basis for the rest of her life, even after I die. So what else do I need to do for her? More than likely, a judge is going to say, you're already getting enough from him. You don't need anything else. Now, she got a high-priced lawyer and they decide to, Shawshank Redemption you, then that's a different story. But but a lot of the times when we think about the average divorce, there's no payment option set up. The average divorce, there is, once she's gone, there's no income coming in, and a judge has to order for her to receive some type of alimony because he makes more money than her, and she doesn't have enough money to sustain the standard of living that he provided to her. And the law indicates that if she can't sustain herself at the lifestyle that she had in marriage, that the person with the most money has to subsidize the lifestyle to offset that in the divorce. So again, if you're building this trust and everybody's getting broke off, the subsidy is going to come from the trust. It's not going to come from you. You shouldn't have to give her anything else. He says 150 accounts. Does one register a bank account in a state they don't live in? Yeah, you do. Well, I mean, if you're claiming interest on that bank account, yeah, you want to register the interest everywhere you got interest from if you're filing taxes. But you can get these days with fintech, you can actually get um, a, a bank account from every city and every state that you don't live in online. All you have to do is provide your identification cards and wire transfer money into that account to open that account. And then you're going to be doing phone calls and online transactions. So as long as you can prove that you're an American citizen, there are about 4,000 plus credit unions and another 4,000 plus banks where you have over 8,000 financial institutions in the United States. If you had an account with each one of them, you would not have enough money to put $100 in all of them at the same time. You might if you have 50 grand, but 8,000 institutions with $100 in them, it'd be like $800,000. So unless you was rolling, you know what I mean? So this guy is talking about when corruption persists long enough, does it stop being violations of moral and morality and start masquerading as tradition? Well, that's the kind of question that you would ask on a Sunday when we have questions and comments from the fans, offsetting from the actual topic at hand. Because actually, right now, we're talking about how to teach your kids how to be financially successful. We're learning all of the financial information that we didn't learn from schools, and how we can not only learn this, but we can implement this by teaching our kids this. We can build trust so that we can learn how to move money from our generation to the next generation, where we're not dealing with probate or estate tax. And we're talking about how teaching your kids and your grandkids how to be more financially successful than you were when you were growing up. Then they will have a head start in being successful in life. But a moral violation is not going to be masqueraded as tradition. It's just going to be, just like racism, traditionally morally unethical. It's the lack of morale and lack of ethics, but it is still traditionally infused in history. It's not a masquerade. Anything that is, if it's wrong, it's always wrong. It's just if it's done often enough, it's tradition to do wrong things. How's it going? Crack it up. This is interesting. What do you do? I don't understand the question. You're asking me what am I doing right now? Because right now we're having a podcast where I'm teaching you guys about finance and personal development. What do I do outside of this? Is I teach people everything that they're not being taught in school. So fundamentally, I'm a teacher. If that helps you, is that I couldn't agree more. Thank you. You're welcome. But on Sunday, if you've got like intellectual questions like that and you want to know more about random things, Sunday is a day for random questions. Typically throughout the week, we have more strategic questions that are in line with the main topic of the subject. And so Dylan says, my prenup would state if she wants a divorce, she has to prove she's not a witch by holding her breath in the bottom of a lake for an hour. Well, uh, that's an interesting joke, but the prenuptial agreement would be in line with where parties are voluntarily agreeing not to receive compensation upon separation for any reason. And if you word it correctly, even infidelity does not breach certain contracts. Uh, but depending on the kind of lawyer, that's an issue that can change things. So if you have like 3 or 4 different prenuptial agreements, one on top of the other, that are worded in different ways where it covers just about every type of scenario of a divorce, the 4 or 5 different prenups come together to what is called an ironclad contract, where no matter what circumstance occurs, you're not getting anything. But if you have a situation where you're agreeing to the settlement of exclusively what is issued to you from the trust, as long as that trust amount is not modified to 0 after the separation, that you will get whatever the trust is giving you, and you will not ask for or take action to acquire anything more. That type of agreement Still stipulated, because if you breach the prenuptial agreement, it's void. And one of the ways that you breach the agreement is by withholding information. That's a thing. But if you're downright trustworthy, well, not trustworthy, but transparent about 100% of what's going on, and you have a contract that you yourself, the creator of the contract, didn't breach, she can't breach the contract and then try to gain compensation off the contract. That's beautiful. I have a financial question. Okay, so what's your financial question? Do you know anything about tax deferred retirement accounts moving to real estate? Tax deferred retirement accounts are accounts that have tax deferred year over year. And what happens is that people use those accounts to purchase real estate, and then or invest in real estate deals. Then when the real estate deal has resolved itself, the profits from the real estate deal go back into the retirement account. That transaction is not taxed because it is a form of investment for the retirement account. Once the retirement account matures, whatever you get from the retirement account will either be taxed if it is a deferred, or if it's still deferred, you'll pay the tax of that year, or if it is exempt after a certain age, like 69 years old, if that's the write up of your thing where it's deferred for 20 to 30 years, and then after that 20 or 30 years, there is no taxation on it. Once it matures and you're able to get back whatever's in there, then you get back and you don't have to pay taxes on it based on that account. But if it's just deferred and you have to pay taxes on it, you just don't pay taxes on whatever's in that account. The same way you would invest in a stock or a money market account or a CD or an S&P 500 or something to that effect. Whatever portfolio is built on that retirement account in order to gain interest on that retirement account, that's what it's used. So if you use that portfolio for real estate investment, yeah, you can do that. You can invest. Matter of fact, you can have a deferred retirement account, have a real estate business, be an investor of your real estate business, and then have a contract with your investment scenario where the interest rates are higher than the average individual, the same way Donald Trump took out a loan from himself and paid himself back. And then you can put more profits into your retirement instead of putting it into your pocket, and then it'll be deferred because it's in your retirement account. You're still going to have to pay yourself for your standard of living, but you can put more money into your retirement account as the beneficiary of the sale. Then you can still take the profits from your sale that didn't go into you directly, and you can add it in yourself as an installment, as the grantor, which could potentially in some situations have tax deferment options on that as well, because there is a limit to how much money you can add to your Roth IRA directly, but your Roth IRA can turn a profit off of whatever transactions that the Roth IRA is doing, and those profits are tax deferred until you go to liquidate that IRA account. So I want to know if there is anyone who can beat me at chess. Well, I don't know. I think that what's his name? Ruderus. Ruderus can, if you go to chess.com and put in Ruderus 123, he can do at chess because he's been doing it for a while. He has a whole chess platform that he does on YouTube, and he shows people how to play chess. So if you want to challenge somebody, Michael plays chess. You can play Michael. Crockett Up says, if the profits are reinvested into another similar asset, is it still deferred? If the money comes out of the Roth IRA as a withdrawal, it is going to be taxed when it's taken out. If it is invested into an investment opportunity, like, for example, buying, holding a real estate property that's going to become a rental property where a percentage of the rent is going to go back into the Roth IRA as the profit, then that money goes into the Roth IRA. It's just like buying into a stock option, or buying into crypto, or buying into gold and silver. The whole transaction is a financial investment. You're not buying a property that you're going to live in. You're buying a rental property that somebody's going to rent, and then the profits from that rental property is going to go to its investors, and the investor is a Roth IRA. As long as the Roth IRA is the investor, not the consumer, you don't have to worry about the taxation part. But when you start making purchases from your Roth IRA as a consumer, those purchases are taxed. But an investment that is going to buy into an investment opportunity and have a return on investment, that investment is not taxed. Ah, yes, you are a smart man. We speak the same language. Well, I do my research on that. I do research every day of the week, 365 days a year, 366 on a leap year. And I curate all my information for the show before the show to make sure that I'm giving you guys all the information from a factual perspective. And if any event that any information comes up and you have a question about it, you always can take the opportunity to go and ask the Google lady about it, because if you go Google it, you can cross-reference it and verify that all the information that I said is true. Because the same way that you can get your information offline, I can get my information offline. And this is supposed to be common knowledge, but it's not all too common because not too many people know about most of the things that are going on, because we have so much information on the internet that we're dealing with information overload, and we essentially develop tunnel vision to offset it. So instead of looking into ways to better ourselves, we just focus on the immediate self-preservation and self-satisfaction that we need. We Google the things we want to buy. We Google the things we want to look at. We Google the things that we want to entertain ourselves, but we don't Google ways to make our life better. We just complain about how life sucks. And typically we try to blame local politics or blame, quote unquote, the man, which is an invisible entity of self stagnation, because we don't apply ourselves to learning something new so that we can go and do something new. So, this show is all about teaching you guys how to think outside of the box, how to live better and behave better by making better choices, and then looking into alternatives different from what you didn't think about doing before you came to the show. I'm actually looking to go to college for finance, so I have a bit of long questions. How do you feel about being too leveraged? Because I feel society today pushes new investors to buy and leverage. Well, I can tell you that ultimately it is your choice to leverage. And leveraging means using your assets as collateral to get more. That's what leveraging is. Whether you're getting more capital, whether you're getting more assets, that's what leveraging is. And the gurus that are out there swearing up and down that doubling down on your investment by leveraging your assets in order to get more are going to do that, because if you're betting against their bet and they have a surefire bet, the more you put into the pot, the more they get when they go down a full house. However, when I talk to you guys about investing, I talk to you guys about the most simplistic way to go into investing as a rookie investor: buying cash dividend stocks that pay dividends every month or every quarter, so that you're getting money on a regular basis, which allows you to know where your money's going and where your money's coming from. Take the profits from your cash stocks and use that to invest in other things. Bitcoin, but you want to do research on what you're investing in before you invest into it. Real estate investors tell you the tools to expand on real estate by leveraging one rental property as collateral to buy another rental property, and then fill that property with a tenant, and then leverage that and do it again and again and again until you have 200 or 300 units that you own or that your business owns, where the tenants are paying the mortgages. Like, they had one billionaire that had said that he had like $1 billion worth of debt offset by $1 billion worth of capital. Now, the thing is that on paper, he zeroes out. But in actuality, he's a billionaire. He owns nothing. He controls everything. And he has whatever he wants. But it's your responsibility as a savvy investor to know if you should invest in this before you even think about leveraging. Then you decide if it's even necessary to leverage. Because if you have capital gains that you can put towards something, then you can utilize your capital gains. You don't have to leverage something. And if you're going to leverage something, you have to have a blanket of security to cover the leverage, so that if in the event that your investments don't go the way you want them to go, that you're not stuck with a debt that you can't pay. But if you're going to leverage something, you're not going to leverage the assets that are directly under your immediate control, not your primary house, not your primary vehicle. You're going to leverage your stock market. You're going to leverage your gold and silver and other assets so that if your trades default, you lose your investment portfolio, but you don't lose the house and the car and everything else that you own. When you start taking your primary house and leveraging it for an investment deal, you're taking an extreme risk, because if this goes under, they foreclose on your house and you're living on the street. If you take out a car loan to go and to start up a business, and then the business flops, they repossess your car. So that's the reason why it is not a good look. So I'm looking to do a different kind of real estate business instead of normal seller financing. I'm looking to do a form of seller financing using a lender license to pull equity out of the property. But that's exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing that what I'm talking about. So pulling equity out of the property requires you to buy and sell, because you can actually subjugate the land from the house, which is completely different from today's topic. And this will be a fantastic story to have on Tuesday night when we talk about business and finance and investing. Because today we're talking about teaching your kids how to work on finance better. So you might want to write down a lot of your future questions and save them for next Tuesday's show. But I'm going to answer these before we wrap things up. If you're going to subjugate the land where you can sell the house to somebody and then they're going to still lease the land from you on top of that, that's where HOAs come from. When you're dealing with seller finance, where you're going to do almost like, I can't remember the name of the company, but you buy the house and then you do like a rent to own scenario where they rent the property from you for a period of time and then they buy the property from you. You can do that. You can do a self-financing situation where you buy the property from them and then you lease it to the other person, or sell it to the other person through your in-house financing situation, which means that you can control the interest rates. Instead of them trying to get money from the bank, they're going to get it from you. See what I'm saying? And that increases your profitability, which still allows you, if you wanted to do that, pull equity out of the property and go do something else with it, as long as you don't default on the property because somebody else is trying to buy the property. They would have to pay you the amount of mortgage that's on the property before they get the deed on the property, which means that whatever you leverage the property for has to be less than what they're owing you on the property. So when they pay you in full, the loan is paid off, the mortgage is paid off. And instead of doing angel investors or partners, I'm looking to allow tenants to buy in lump sums, ultimately avoiding banks. You can do that. You can start up a company where you can start up a real estate investment trust is what that would be called, where the tenants can buy into the trust and they can get shares out of that trust, where those shares will pay them dividends. And you can take their capital and use that capital to leverage towards picking up more rental properties. You can actually, instead of giving them shares of the property itself, you can give them shares of the rent, where you divide up a certain property. And there's a website, there's an app that has this exact same model that you're talking about that's called Lambda. And what they did was they took an app and everybody can invest on this app for different properties. And the app categorizes how many shares of a specific rental property that they have. They divide the rental property up to a specific quantity of shares, where each person will get so many cents per share on that particular quantity of rent. As that property is being used, that asset gets them dividends. If the property is not being used, where the tenant doesn't pay rent or the tenant moves out and the property doesn't have a tenant in it, they're not getting any dividends. And you can set up that particular type of, and it's going to end up being like an FDIC back situation, but you can set up an app to do that and consolidate, but that's going to be a real estate investment trust model. It's a balloon model because the more people that invest in it, the more money that they're owed. And if you're not taking their money and expanding to gain more rental properties while taking your cut out of the deal and paying yourself, you're going to find that you're going to reach a bubble where there's going to be more people that are owed money than people that paid in money. And you're not going to have enough money to pay back, where basically you're going to be taking the investment from the next guy to pay off the investors from the last situation, and you're going to be chasing your tail till the bubble bursts. But if you're continuing to expand on the properties, and then as you expand on the properties, uh, you're able to keep that for yourself and then divide the other 90% up to all of the investors. You can get you a lot of investors doing that. Is that I also starting by buying my first house cash and avoiding loans, so I can try my model. You should do that because actually, if you buy your first house cash up front, you can leverage that first house for a 60% loan, buy a second house, have two rental properties with tenants in them, and both of those tenants are splitting the cost of the mortgage. And that'll be a good start for your platform, because once you put up those two properties for people to invest in, you get the money from the investors to help you buy a third and fourth house, potentially pay off the mortgage, where you could then utilize that mortgage to well, utilize the fact that the properties no longer have a mortgage to take three or four properties, put it together, get you an apartment complex, and then you can do that same model with multiple units in the apartment complex. So instead of them investing in the apartment complex itself, they would invest in the rent for each individual unit of the apartment complex. And that would give them more dividends per unit. And that would give you more shares per unit to split up. But yeah, that's something to do. And you can scale up. It's a fantastic idea. And one of the things you can also do is take some of the money that you have and put it into tax deed states, where the state, the property that you're looking at is already expired from its ability to cash in. You put your money down, clear up the state, foreclose on it, get the property, set it up. You get it for way less than buying it off the market, and then put that up there on the app, and then you can start getting paid from that particular property, where you might have would have put $10,000 or $20,000 into acquiring a property and $50,000 to rebuild the property, where $70,000 has you a $300,000 valued property that you can leverage for $150,000, which gives you back your entire investment, and put a tenant in there, and now they're paying on a 30-year mortgage. Where a 30-year mortgage might be $900 a month, your rent might be $15 for that same property, where you're getting the difference after they pay the mortgage. So that's actually a really good idea, by using a trust instead of actually selling portions of the house. Yeah, I was also factoring in lowering the rent for the tenants, using their lump sum and buying a safe investment. You don't want to lower the rent too much, because while lowering the rent for this investment opportunity is a good idea, the cost of the operation of the property is going to come out of the tenants paying you money. So the downside of lowering the rent is that eventually there's going to be repairs. And if you don't have enough money set aside to cover the repairs, you're not making a profit off of the property. And the tenants are still going to have to be satisfied, because you still have laws in every state in the United States about adequate living situations. So while, yeah, you might want to charge a few cents per square foot less than your competitors, so that you're one of the cheaper properties in the area, and you can charge for application fees, and like have like 1,000 people apply before you select somebody to give them a unit, so that at $75 to $100 for application fees, you can have 1,000 people give you that need. Then you got $75,000, because if everybody's paying $75 and 1,000 people apply for this unit, then you get $75,000. You don't have to lower the rent. You can just do like a non-refundable application fee, and then use that 75 grand to invest in something, and be charging like 15, 20 cents per square foot less than your competitors in the market. And because it's cheaper than every other location in that area, everybody's going to be fighting to get it, and you're just going to select one and put them in there. And that gives you more money as well. Is I'll save my other questions for when you have another session. You said it's Tuesday. I'm here every night But Tuesday, we're actually talking about investment opportunities. And Tuesday, we strategize about ways to make more money, save more money, and invest more money. So we're here every night of the week. But tomorrow night, we're actually going to be talking about how to improve your ability to be more successful by uh, affiliating with a more successful network. Um, which is just like you're picking my brain, would be the same way if you had more successful friends that you hung out with and you picked their brain, you emulated their positive success strategies and utilize that to more effectively make yourself more successful. That's the kind of stuff that you do to improve yourself. Hanging out with the buddies that you used to be with when you were broke is fine. But if they don't know how not be broke anymore and you're not broke anymore, they're not going to aid you in being more successful because they're never talking about how to be more successful. They're talking about what Drake and Diddy did. You need to be focusing on how to be more financially successful. So you need to talk to more people that are financially successful or people who at least have ideas about being financially successful so that you can explore new options and then take chances based on the research that you do. So we're going to be talking about that tomorrow. And then we have Sunday is the questions and comments from the fans. And a lot of the comments and questions are typically related to relationships, but it's not exclusive to that. So if you wanted to talk about some money on Sunday, we could. But specifically tuned for Money is Tuesday. It's all about where to get your money from, the best way to get it legally, and then how to budget your money, and then how to invest your money. And I do have a couple of episodes already about building a trust, building an LLC. You can build an LLC and have the trust own the LLC, and that gives you extra layers of protection. And then you can have investors invest in the business, and they can invest in the LLC, where you maintain yourself as like 51% or more of primary shareholder of the business, and then you give them non-voting shares of the business, and they can invest in the business, which helps you invest in the real estate. And like I said, with um, leveraging the application fee, and then also having them invest in the trust, and the trust owns the business. They can invest in both the business and the trust separately, and then the trust and the business do a joint venture to go and get into real estate, and you can spread it out like that. So there's a lot of different ways that you can go about doing it. And we've got I've covered different shows about it. So throughout my channel, there's a lot of stuff up there about different ways for you to invest in different countries around the world to invest. And when you're trying to do this with real estate, you can take this outside of America and do the exact same thing in different countries around the world. Because like in Japan, you can buy land with no money down on the land, and all you got to do is pay the property taxes. Where sometimes the property taxes for 1,000 acres is like $1,000. Because their properties depreciate in value over time. So 30-year-old piece of property for them is worth no money, where a 30-year-old house in America is worth like $500,000. So I appreciate your time, and what you're doing is awesome. Well, I greatly appreciate it, man. That's what we've been here for. Here on This and That, all I do is provide the men with the stuff that they need to become higher value men, not just by putting more money into their pockets, but giving them more opportunities to make better decisions with their finances in their personal life as well as in their business life. So half of the week we talk about ways that your money can be impacted and where it can be impacted between governmental politics, geopolitical trades, investing, savings, and then alternative ways to make more facets of income, because you can only get paid so much money for your presence. And then after that, your money has to make more money for you. You have to automate stuff where money starts coming in from other places. And then we talk about different countries where you can live at on Wednesday for a cheaper price and potentially invest in those countries and make larger quantities of returns on investments in those countries, where eco-lodging and other such things have started to become a thing since like 4 months ago, where you can invest in building ground up structures that could then turn you profits in different countries around the world. So and then when you start doing those types of investments, you have also the opportunity of getting citizenship in other countries, green cards, and other such things that helps you have better travel rights, because places you can't go as an American, you can go from the Caribbean. You can have more taxation privileges, because certain states, or well, certain countries that don't tax you, that have reciprocity laws with the United States, if you are over there as a business, your money isn't going to be taxed by the United States the way it would be taxed as an individual. So there's a lot of things that you can do and learn just by coming to the show every day, because we talk about different stuff on a regular basis, 7 days a week. We don't let the sun rise without going live, but we don't always start on time. So, you just got to take a look at some of the shows that we've got planned, and then you can see what's going on. But unfortunately, I'm not an attractive chick with cleavage showing, so guys are just flocking in just to see because of cute. Actually, you sit here for a while hovering. Sometimes people heckle the show, and then after a while, you're like, oh shit, he's talking about stuff that I never thought about. And that's what makes you come back, because you found value in the show within the time limit that you were at the show. And that's when you started realizing you have an educated man talking about ways for the average person to be more successful. And then you just decide to invest in coming on a regular basis. But it is a very unique podcast, because we are here on Twitter, Twitch. Eventually, we're going to be on TikTok once they sell to the United States. We're on both the shorts reel, which is probably how you found me, and then the long form reel with the 16:9. And we've got all kinds of opportunities and all kinds of ways that we talk to you guys. And it's a multi-brand interaction. So YouTube can talk to TikTok and Twitch when they're communicating on the channel, because a lot of y'all's comments are seen at the bottom for the 16:9 and at the top for the 9:16. And everybody knows what everybody's saying as long as their comments are appropriate. Michael was a little bit inappropriate today, but he's been around for a while. And that's what this is what we do. We try to help guys, because we crack jokes. It's an adult channel, but I want to make sure that the kids learn something, because we didn't have mentorship growing up. We didn't have it because our parents didn't have it to give to us. And as I get it, I'm a teacher. I teach it to everybody else. So, because knowledge is supposed to be free, but you only get knowledge by buying a book, attending a seminar, going to a retreat, and you just spent 4 days not learning shit. Where one of my cheapest memberships is like $3 or $4 a month. And I'm here giving you 3-hour-long podcast every night of the week, where you learn more stuff with me in a month than what you would learn from a financial investor that would give you, for 1 hour, $350 cost, a limited quantity of direct questions that you have to ask, and they'll dismiss you inside of 55 minutes. I've been here for 3 hours and 24 minutes today talking about how to make your kids better, and I'm only here for the extra hour and 20 minutes because I was talking about other ways to make yourself better on top of that. Travel, and it's pretty crazy. The currency difference too. One of the best parts about the currency issue is that your US dollar goes a lot further in other countries. Even though, yeah, the US dollar has appreciated in value over time, the US dollar is worth more in other countries. And if you go to other countries, we have that already created for you. Get your an offshore bank account. You can wire transfer certain quantities of money to certain countries. And then instead of getting on a plane with $10, $15, $20,000 being robbed by American feds, because they will rob you, they will rob you quicker on an airplane than what you would get robbed at a gas station. So instead of flying around with cash, where a government agent can steal your money, you can wire transfer it to the country that you're trying to go to. Get you a cashier's check, go to another country, go to the bank, cash that cashier's check, open up an account, and then wire transfer money to that account on a regular basis. Small amounts of money regularly to an offshore account. And then that account now is a country where when you want to go to that country, you can get the money from that country. You don't have to take anything with you. You can leave all your stuff behind. You don't even have to have a carry-on. When you go to another country, you buy the clothes that you're going to buy while you're out there. If you want to bring them back as a souvenir, then you buy you a suitcase, put some stuff in it, and bring it back. But typically, you go there with nothing and come back with whatever you want to come back with. And then you could potentially sell that stuff to people at a higher price in America as gently used, authentic from whatever country that you were in, and sell it at a higher price than what you would have sold it at a thrift store, where whatever it was you didn't want, you could sell it to somebody else here in America and make a ton of money because it's not accessible here. And people will pay more money for rare things. So, it's one of the things that people don't consider at all. They don't consider it. But if they did, you'd be turning a pretty decent profit. And with work visas and digital nomad visas that are offering 12 and 5 years to stay in other countries, it makes more sense to have one of the businesses that you have be a C corporation, real estate investment platform that can be a foreign domestic in another country. And in places like Japan, they even have incentives where they'll pay you money. If you start up a real estate investment company out there, you start up rental properties out there, you invest in that, hire a couple of Japanese people to run the place for you, and then they give you an incentive for that. They reimburse you a little bit of the money towards your investment over there. But because as a United States entity, you got to claim taxes with the United States, they give you up to these days between $150,000 and $250,000 of tax exemption on your offshore investment opportunities. So if you buy into a real estate over there, that's a tax deduction on the profits you got in America. So you can buy in Asia a real estate investment opportunity that would otherwise be a bad deal for them. You could turn it into a good deal for you because you're buying into something that will save you taxes on something that you are making profits on in America. And you can do that all around the world. Oh yeah, I've been talking about big scale. I've been talking about offshore investing, offshore trading, overseas living. I'm gonna cover the whole 9 yards on the show. Yeah, not too many people know about that. And I had did the digging, and then I started putting the pieces together, and I was like, oh shit, because they have tax reciprocities with several countries around the world. United States requires you, if you're going to file taxes for offshore profits as well. But that also means that you file taxes for offshore debts as well. So if you have a business and you turn in profits with your business in America, you're making $1 million of profits with your business in America, and you did $250,000 worth of debt in Japan, that $250,000 worth of debt in Japan comes off your taxation from your profits in America, because that's international business. Yeah. And if you're doing business in countries that doesn't have taxation, you can do real estate in those countries, turn a pure profit, and any debt that you gain from starting up the business over there is offset by the profits that you made in the United States. This is how millionaires are becoming billionaires. They're not keeping their money in one spot. They're diversifying. They're not just diversifying across the stock market. They're not just diversifying across Bitcoin. They're diversifying across every industry in every country around the world. And the bigger your situation gets, the more people you work for, the more people that work for you, and the more people that work for you, the more you have people helping you find better deals where you can get more stuff, where you can have more things that can be leveraged to get more stuff. That's why they keep talking about leveraging. If you use one house to get two and you got two tenants paying on one mortgage, you pay it off faster. You leverage those two houses to get a house that costs 4 times more than that, because typically you're leveraging about 50 to 60% of the house, 65% at the most. If you've got two $500,000 properties, you can leverage both of them for $500,000, $250,000 a piece, which is 50% of each property. But now you got $500,000, and 30% of a investment deal is a $1.5 million property. Well, if you could put $500,000 towards a $1.5 million property, you just went from 2 houses to 2 houses and an apartment complex. Just that simple. And all it takes is for you to think outside the box, balance your budget, make sure that you don't draw in more debt than you have profits, and then continue to diversify. You have to take into consideration what happens when government shutdowns occur and a large majority of your tenants are government agents. You have to take into account that there are a lot of government incentives from the United States that helps you, that provides you reimbursement for at-risk environments, low-income environments. There's more profits to be made in Section 8 housing than what there needs in like regular real estate investment opportunities, and the money is more guaranteed with Section 8 housing than what it is from people that are not on Section 8, because federal agents making $250,000 a year didn't have money for 6 weeks, but Poor people rent was paid every month on the first. So even though the government shut down, rent got paid. That budget was that HUD budget wasn't modified. See what I'm saying? So all it takes is for you to think outside of the box. But as adults, we restrict ourselves to a list of things we cannot do. And we set those limitations. Oh, I can't do that. Why? I don't know. I just don't think I can. Not because you tried and you failed. You didn't try because you didn't think you would succeed. And that's where you set your own limitations in life. So I continue to encourage people to think about outside of the box. Think about, first of all, you build a plan of what ifs. And then you offset that plan of what ifs to what you're actually capable of doing. And that will be your limitations. How much money can you put up? How much money can you get an investor to put up? How much effort can you put into this versus how much extra effort you have to get from other people? How much money you got to pay those people for their effort? And if the plan is doable, execute it. And if the plan is doable, guess what? That is a business plan. And that business plan can get you a $50,000 SBA loan. Plain and simple. You start with a hypothetical and you work your way down to actual. Do you think foreign investing is going to slow down the incentive considering current political situations in the United States? No. The foreign incentives in other countries have nothing to do with the United States. Those incentives are to develop their country. And all of the countries around the world have real estate incentives to build up low income areas so that they can help more people who can't afford to pay for living have a place to live. They also have energy and fuels and other such like precious minerals and mining and stuff like that every country does. But you're in real estate, and in real estate, the incentives in real estate are not changing because there are more people who can't afford to live, and there are less houses for the quantity of people. I think I just covered that not too long ago over the last week, that there are essentially, actually, I think I covered it on Monday's night show, where there's essentially well over 1 or 2 million unhoused individuals in the United States because there aren't available housing. Not because they can't afford it, because it's not there. While granted, yeah, there are houses up for sale. The average renter doesn't have an availability to rent at their current income level. So building rental properties for low income individuals is a very huge market because you have potentially 2 million people that need a place to live. But so many people are trying to buy that house in Malibu. So many people are trying to buy that $3 million mansion on Beverly Hills Drive and still getting $50,000 off the deal, instead of picking up a few 100,000 properties in the hood and renovating that up, boosting up the economy, boosting up the neighborhood, and turning low-income neighborhoods into thriving suburban areas where your expectation for profit will depreciate a little bit, but the consistency of the income will be increased by a lot. And people don't think about that because with greed, you want to get the most quantity of money in the least period of time. But with success, you want to have the longest quantity of revolving income with the least amount of effort. Yeah, that's my motivation for my model. Specifically, I think it's a interest problem. Like banks make fortunes on interest. I'm okay with a much smaller profit than they are. Well, partially it's an interest problem. The other part of it is that a lot of people who have experienced evictions in their past, they are considered high-risk tenants. Those individuals are not readily accepted under the average rental model. If you've had an eviction within the last 10 years, they won't rent to you. If you've had a felony in the last 5 years, they won't rent to you. And if you've had a misdemeanor, no, if you've had a felony in the last 3 years, they won't rent to you. And if you've had a misdemeanor in the last 5 years, they won't rent to you. So certain criteria automatically disqualify you, even if you can afford it. But what say you charge a premium for people who don't qualify? That's when you start tapping into a market of individuals that are desperate for a place to stay, and they will give you more money because you're going to give them a place to stay. Then here's another tip that you can add to your model. Do not raise the rent on a regular basis. Give them fixed rent until they move out. That guarantees if they can afford it when they move in, they're more likely to afford it the entire time they stay there. Then whenever you renovate the apartment after they move out, then you raise the rent. Several millionaires have said that's the best way to go, because instead of having 70% retention, you have closer to 96% retention, because by raising the rent, they afforded it at first, and then you raised it beyond their affordability, and now you're evicting them because they can't afford the higher rent. If you would have kept it where it was, they would have been good. And even with Section 8, if you raise the rent, Section 8 is going to give you a fixed quantity of money. So when you raise the rent, it just requires the tenant to offset the difference. uh, what's a fix to that, you see? Well, like you were talking about in-house financing. So people can't get loans from the bank because they don't financially qualify. So if you're going to finance them in the contract with them, where they're going to gain access to the property, they're going to pay you the interest, which means that instead of you getting a lump sum of money in the beginning, they're going to be making installments to you over time, uh, with higher interest rates, which means that you're going to make more money off the deal. If they foreclose on it, you foreclose on a property, you keep the property, but you keep all the money with interest. Um, the other half of that is when you're renting out to people. You're renting out to people. You're charging more money for because again, the security deposit is separate from the rent. So you charge them a security deposit, but you also make it a down payment requirement that is not the security deposit. Is like 3 or 4 months rent. Since you're a high risk tenant, give me 3 or 4 months rent. I got you. And then you still have to pay the rent every month on time. You're just advance paying the first few months. You can have them on the first 12 months locked in, and then have them on a month-to-month contract after that, where it automatically renews every 30 days after the first 12 months. But they're 4 months in advance on the rent. If something happens and they can't pay the rent for 2 or 3 months, they already paid you for those months. Come month 4, you ain't got to ask no questions. You can just give them a 30-day notice to vacate, saying that you're terminating the agreement with them. You're not going to renew the contract after that. They've got to move out because they haven't given you any money over the last 4 months. They can renegotiate that with you and say, hey, I got the money now. But now you're going to renew a contract. That new lease comes with a new rent cost. See what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, all of the rules that apply in a rental scenario can still apply. But with an at-risk tenant, you could simply just have them give you more money up front to guarantee that they're not going to fall behind on their rent because they've already paid you 3 or 4 months in advance. That gives you security with your high-risk tenants. But at the same time, you're still going to have tenants moving in because it's cheaper than everybody else. You're undercutting the real estate market. And by it being cheaper than everybody else, you're capable of maintaining a larger quantity of filled units, which has a higher profitability for each rental property, which then gives you the capability of taking that property and leveraging it for more money to go and get you more properties, which allows you to expand your real estate investment idea. Because I was thinking of a way of qualifying specific tenants using a screening process and affording a budgeting class. And I personally see if they are financially viable of doing long-term installments. That's a fantastic idea. You can also use it as a rehabilitation program, where instead of disqualifying them based on their scenarios, you can have those budgeting classes and teach them how to be more financially responsible. And then, as a renter of your property, and then after they have grown the financial capabilities to buy, they could potentially buy the place that they're in. Because selling, the difference between a condo and an apartment is that there's a deed to the apartment. So you could lease out condos as rental properties, put them through and this is at-risk families that have bad credit with evictions and foreclosures and bankruptcies and criminal records and all this other stuff. And you rent them the property at risk at higher down payment up front. monthly payments installed, have them take the budgeting classes, learn how to make, save, and invest. Then once their credit score is qualifiable, they go from being a renter to being an owner. They already been staying here. You can sell them the place that they're in. And you're making money off of them twice, three times really. Because there are government grants out there to rehabilitating and reincorporating individuals back into society. So anybody who just got out of jail, trying to find a job, you're putting them through these budgeting classes. You help them with the Job Corps situation and all this other stuff. As a tenant, you're setting them up to become a homeowner, and then you transition them into a homeowner that you have, where again, you subjugate the land from the house. So they own the restricted deed to the house, but they still got to pay you HOA fees for the land. You're still making money off of the property after you sold the house to the tenant. And you can make money like 9 ways off of this thing. And the more involved you are with each tenant, the more money you can make off of each tenant just by helping them. You help them for a price. And if they're willing to pay that price, you're going to stick with them until they're successful. And then after they're successful, you're going to check on them on a regular basis to make sure they stay successful. And anybody who has the drive to no longer be broke, anybody who has a drive to no longer struggle, is going to take whatever you have to offer, do the best they can with it, and find a way to be more successful. And that's what this podcast is all about. Anybody who's willing to hang out here for 4 hours and listen to me talk about ways to improve yourself has a drive to improve themselves. And they're going to take something of what I told them, and they're going to try to incorporate it so that they can try to make themselves better in some way, shape, or form. Take an idea, turn it into reality. They're going to try to take investment opportunities, make themselves more financially successful. And ultimately, they're going to end up being in a position where 10 to 20 years from now, sticking with me, you should have made yourself a quarter millionaire, if not a millionaire. If you're making better decisions, doing your research. Don't just take my word for it. My word is like Wikipedia. You want to take the knowledge that I gave you as a foundational investigative tool and use that to do deeper dives into whatever it is that you're trying to do. And after you verify what I told you is legit, because it is, then you'll be able to implement whatever it is that you feel comfortable with implementing. And then based on trial and error, you're going to make changes along the way, and you will find the success that you're looking for. Now, with that being said, for the last 12 years, schools prepared you for a world that no longer exists. And that's one of the reasons why we talk about these things. I taught you today to be a cog in a machine, to trade your hours for dollars, to consume and to obey. That is the path to financial frailty. It's why money is a significant source of stress for so many people. But today you received a new education, a forbidden roadmap, a 10-year plan that could be extended to a 20-year plan to allow room for failure. But that 10-year plan replaces a flawed education with a blueprint for freedom. We started from the age of 8 to 10 with the foundation, where you learn what money is and how it's earned. We moved to habits and small risks at ages 11 through 13, where you learn to budget and felt the consequences of small, safe mistakes. Then came real income and banking at ages 14 through 16, where you deconstructed your first paycheck and linked work to your lifestyle. At credit, big decisions, and investing for ages 17 to 18, you entered the real game, building your credit and unlocking the magic of tax-free investing in certain situations. And finally, we hit the full launch at age 19 through 20, where you design your future and built a system to make it a reality. The same way Crockett Up just came through and spent 30 minutes with me setting up the type of future that he wants to see with this business opportunity that he wants to have happen to him. And it's not a theory. This is a practical step-by-step plan. The school system may have failed you, but you are not a victim. You are the architect of your own life. And over 80% of adults say they wish they were required to take a personal finance class in high school, or at least have known this information from this podcast 30 years ago. You just got that class. You have that knowledge, the knowledge that a vast majority of people never got, and they still don't get. You now have the blueprint, the same one that has created financial freedom for countless people who dedicate themselves to stop playing by the old rules and learn the real rules of the game. And your 10-year plan doesn't start tomorrow. It should, in fact, start today. It should have started yesterday. So what I want you guys to do is stop waiting for permission to be wealthy. The game has always been on, and it's time for you to start winning that game. Now, thank you guys for coming to this and that tonight. Before we go, I want to say, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you ladies to make it make sense. So ladies, please make it make sense. And again, fellas, I do this to help you guys become higher value men, not only in your business life, but also in your personal lives. So as you think about the things in your life that you wish would change, you think about the things that are inside of your control and put your effort into that to change it. And the things that are outside of your control, you navigate around. And ladies, while this is a male-driven podcast from the male's perspective, the information can be utilized by you as well to make yourselves higher value women. All you have to do is apply yourself appropriately to the things you want to succeed in. So with that being said, I want to thank you guys for coming to this and that. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I'll see you guys tomorrow night.
Chase validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt upon the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher, constantly making my own climb. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. Living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never yield.